Good evening, all, and welcome to the town board meeting for, what is today, December 3rd?
Yeah.
Tuesday, December 3rd, 2024. If we could all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Chief Noble, if you could lead us off in the pledge.
To the flag of the United States of America
And to the republic for which
which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And if you could remain standing for a moment of silence as we remember, as we come along to the anniversary of Pearl Harbor Day on the 7th, this coming Saturday. Remember those that have defended our country through the years, those that have paid the ultimate sacrifice, and those that are still there, giving their all and signing that blank check to keep us safe and free. Amen. Thank you. So we'll do some quick introductions since we have some people on the far left that you may or may not know. We'll start on my right, though.
Good evening, Diana Quast, Town Clerk.
Luciana Howard, Councilwoman.
Supervisor Ed Lachterman.
Sergio Esposito, Deputy Supervisor.
Patrick Murphy, Councilman.
Susan Siegel, Councilwoman.
Janelle McNeil, Town Comptroller.
David Wong, Deputy Comptroller.
Very good. I think I thought I saw,
I saw Adam.
our attorneys in the back today.
Yep.
Getting a day to sit in the background and hide. Yes. So we're going to start with a proclamation for National Pearl Harbor Remembrance Day, December 7th, 2024. Whereas at 7:55 a.m. on December 7th, 1941, the silence of Sunday morning was shattered when the Imperial Japanese Navy attacked our forces on the United States Naval Base at Pearl Harbor, leaving 2,403 Americans dead and much of our nation's Pacific Fleet destroyed. And whereas this attack led President Roosevelt to call on Congress to declare an act of war the following day, stating that November 7th, 1941, a date which will live in infamy, and whereas the crystal waters of Pearl Harbor have been the resting place of sailors and Marines aboard the USS Arizona, USS Utah, and USS Oklahoma for 83 years, and today we remember the greatest generation who showed great courage and resolve to secure the freedom of millions around the world, and we honor these patriots and commemorate the valor of all those who served. And whereas as we mourn the lives of those we lost on that fateful day, we remember those who defended Pearl Harbor and all those who answered the call to serve our country in battlefields across the world. And we are eternally grateful for members of our military and their families, and it is fitting to observe a day in honor of everyone who served in the United States Armed Forces at Pearl Harbor on December 7th, 1941, and reflect on their sacrifices and those of their family and loved ones who freely risked all for the benefit of others. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Edward A. Lachterman, Town Supervisor of the Town of Yorktown, along with the Town Board, do hereby direct the flags of the United States to be flown at half-staff on all town buildings and grounds on Saturday, December 7th, 2024, as we respectfully recognize National Pearl Harbor Remembrance Day to honor those who died in a result of the attack of the U.S. military force in Hawaii. Okay, we were honored to have an Iwo Jima survivor as our speaker for Veterans Day. They're actually down to single digits. At this time, I believe there are only 16 remaining Pearl Harbor survivors. It was truly the greatest generation. I was honored to meet a World War II veteran yesterday at a 17th Congressional District Veterans of the Year Award, in which our own Yorktown Post Adjutant, Patrick McDonough, was also recognized. And I just want to thank all of the people in our audience who served. Actually, if you have served in the military, can you please stand? Dan, thank you. But I also want to thank the families and all of those who have served. It's what makes America great, and it is truly appreciated every day. So thank you, families, and God bless all of our armed forces and their families. Thank you. All right, did anyone get here from ALS Commission? Up,
There he is.
come on up. So we're going to skip ahead just real quick as we have a resolution today for ALS services, and we have relied on the assessment of our ALS Commission. So if you would like to introduce yourself to the room, and we could talk a little bit about the proposals.
Sure. Good evening, everyone. My name's Tony Iannone. I serve on the ALS Commission for Yorktown. I'm a member of the Mohegan Volunteer Ambulance Corps. And in case you're not aware, our commission is made up of 2 members from the Yorktown Volunteer Ambulance Corps and 2 members from the Mohegan Ambulance Corps. My fellow committee members unfortunately could not be here. They had other commitments. They were unable to reschedule. So we apologize for that. But Mr. Supervisor, the town board, thank you very much for hearing us and having our
Thank you,
time
Tony.
for us. As you're all probably aware, we had been working for for quite a bit of time to try to increase the ALS coverage. That's the paramedics that serve the town. And we, again, with the assistance of the board and the supervisor, we had some pretty significant discussions. And being that you guys did go out for a new RFP, there were 3 bids that came back. The current provider was our lowest bid, and we felt as a board that that would be our best option. And what that would do is currently we have 2 medics on 12 hours a day, 1 medic is on overnight, and during the day they share a vehicle, which means they're both together in the same car. So if there's an incident on this side of town, they're both on this side of town with the car. If somebody's needed on the other side of town, then we have to figure out how to get 1 medic to the other side. You know, and as the town has grown, as you're all aware, you know, our call volumes have gone up both for YVAC and for Mohegan, and we're using the medic services more and more. And at this point, we kind of felt it's just not practical to continue that system. So the option presented by our current vendor will allow us to have 2 vehicles and 2 medics 24 hours a day, which would then allow us to have 1 medic on this side of town with a vehicle and 1 medic on the Mohegan side of town with a vehicle, which should improve our response times and give better service. You know, we looked at the numbers. The other vendors came in. They were a bit higher in their price. And our current vendor was our lowest bidder. And, you know, look, we realize that, you know, with budget season, there's a lot of things the town needs to do. You know, and we realize we don't exist in a vacuum where we can just magically have funds appear our way. So we're trying to balance increasing our service and giving, you know, minimizing the cost as much as we can. Obviously, EMS is an expensive business to be in. And, you know, we're doing the best we can to minimize that cost, but it is not cheap. And we feel that the town has grown to the point where we need the additional service. And thus, we've recommended that we continue with our current vendor. It would be a simpler transition to add an additional vehicle and the additional staff member for the rest of the 24-hour period.
And from what I understand, Empress has sort of cut back on their staffing other people as fill-ins so they could concentrate primarily on their accounts that they have the full-time gig, so to speak?
Yes, that's my understanding. Just to be clear on that, that's for EMTs. What we're discussing here is medics.
Okay, so a little
Okay, so
different. Gotcha.
It's the same company, they're providing that, but that's for the EMT side of it, which is BLS. We're strictly discussing ALS here.
Which is for the medics.
Correct, that's the medics.
And Empress has been the ALS 30 years now?
Yes, my understanding is that when the ALS program came to Yorktown, they were the original vendor, and they've been the vendor ever since.
And in full transparency, there's not many vendors.
No, there really isn't.
There,
Believe me.
I think, what are we, like at 3 or 4
I
max?
I saw paperwork for 3 different bids. There's really not a lot of people out bidding on these types of things.
Right. Okay. Did anyone else on the board have any questions?
Well, could you just explain to our residents the types of services that the paramedic can provide, that the EMTs, and I value the EMTs in both our volunteer ambulance corps, but sometimes we sadly need that advanced service. So could you give us
Absolutely.
some examples, please?
Sure. Basically, again, I'm not an EMT or a medic, so this is just a very generic. But basically, a paramedic can actually administer medications to you. They can start an IV. We can do that in your living room if we need to. So that's really the main difference. There's a higher level of training. And again, the ability to administer medications and carry those medications with them.
Very good.
As somebody explained to me once, it brings the emergency room into your living room.
Yeah, so at some point, I'm going to recuse myself from this, but my husband went from an EMT to a medic, and the amount of training he got and the type of medication that he's able to administrate are not administered either by nurses. The training that they get is that hands-on training so that they can support the other first responders on site, such as like the police department and whatnot, to transport them. So at that point, if it's a heart attack or some sort of stabilization, they're able to administrate those medications, where an EMT can diagnose it but not have permission to
Yeah, it's
or access to.
And quite often, administering those drugs is the difference between
Life and
death.
absolutely.
Well, it's, again, with the size of the town and where we are, depending on where we are to a hospital, it could be 10, 12, 14 minutes to go from where a patient is to a hospital. So that saves us 15 minutes where your medication's being administered
hold you.
15 minutes earlier.
Yeah.
And there also have been times when you guys were on a call, or the medics were on a call because they're sharing the same car, and they're on a call possibly in another town. It could happen, and then a call comes in here, and so we have to get a medic from a different town to come in because it's just not enough staffing.
Correct.
It's just not enough. This unfortunately, the volume of calls has exceeded the level of care that we could provide with the limited amount of staff that we have today.
Right. Well, again, when this program first came into being, the staffing that you have today is what you had when it started.
Yeah. So with the
Obviously-
development, it never met its match.
No, it just never kept pace. I mean, early on, we were able to do that, but obviously our population has gotten a little older. There's people with some significant medical issues, and we see those people on a pretty regular basis. We have several nursing homes in the town that we service,
Yeah.
so there's a lot of demand for that.
Yep.
And there's a level of like, and I don't know if it's for us to worry about so much, but like even with ALS or just the BLS, like the level of fitness, the amount of like, in the event of like carrying someone out or having to hold someone, I feel like there's something there, because I've watched my husband come home and be like, thank God for the police officers to help me get this guy out of the house. Like it's not readily available like it should be.
Right. Any other
Thank you.
questions? Or?
Thank you, and thank all the ALS commissioners for their work.
We
Thank you,
will.
Tony.
Thank you very much.
No,
Yeah.
the
Tony,
Holidays
thanks.
was answered,
You
Tony.
too. Thanks. So
Say hi to everyone.
so now when we're
Tony.
ready on that, when we get to resolutions, we'll
Okay.
go back on that. All right. So 2025 preliminary budget public hearing. We're going to convene our public hearing for the preliminary budget for fiscal year beginning January 1st, 2025. Our papers are all. Thank you. All right, and I just want to go through a few things before we get started here. So our total 2025 tentative budget is $73,117,105. The tentative 73 million. Thank you. It has been a really long day. Yeah, we're running the town a little tight this year.
You're a little short of 73,000.
Sorry,
$73,117,105. Tentative town tax rate was proposed at 8.6%. We did have 2 days of budget meetings with the town board, the town controller, all of the department heads reviewed line by line. The total 2025 preliminary budget came in at $73,795,540, which we were able to bring the preliminary town tax rate down to 6.6%. We were able to lower the town tax rate by 2%, which impacts the average homeowner of assessed taxable value of $10,000 per unit, which is an average home in Yorktown is assessed at $10,000 per unit. It came down from our tentative of 144.33 per year for the town tax to it reduced to 110,082 per year, or $9.24 a month, and that's what covers all of your town services. Not to get confused with the special districts and the school tax, which is the lion's share of our budget. Even though we had increased our costs $678,435, mainly due to retirement costs increases and employee union negotiations, revenues, which were previously projected, consequently were re-examined. And I'll thank Councilman Esposito, who was a large part of that charge to really look back and see what we could look at them. Our sales tax line increased from the tentative to the preliminary $100,000. Our third quarter payments received in November, we are trending about $402,301 more than last year. Even with the $100,000 increase, we're still conservative in our projections versus actual. Our interest income increased by $630,150. With numbers posted through October of 2024 versus our full year of 2023, we're already favored by $1.3 million. Our mortgage tax increased by $150,000, and with that we looked at the past historical data specifically to the 2008 mortgage crisis and analyzed the revenue for the 5 years after the collapse of the housing market, and our average revenue was $1,059,796. Our sewer rents increased by $190,513, and the board discussed with the town engineer during our budget meetings that the sewer rent rate needed to be increased as it hadn't been for a while. The current rate is $1.20, and the proposed amount is $2.40, which will be discussed with the public at an upcoming meeting before it's before we finish up everything. Due to analysis above, the change in the preliminary revenues still follows the rule of being fiscally conservative when projecting income and is well within the scope of reasonableness. Special districts, as I mentioned before, and those vary by homeowner, are sewer districts which pertain to taxpayers depending upon which district they live. For the majority of them, we'll see very slight increases. A few of the districts will see an increase due to the new implementation of restructuring these funds, which for a long time have had some issues that needed to be addressed, meaning the people who work in the sewer department and how that is spread through the different sewer districts. The refuse and recycling district will see an increase per household of $13 per year. Part of this is due to needing some new equipment that has been put off for a long time, and we will be building up to get a new garbage truck. The advanced life support this year saw an increase which has been communicated throughout the past few years to the public that we were looking to do this. The ALS committee has been before the board multiple times to present the need for additional resources. Services to protect the community with an additional fly car will end up costing $27.10 per year for the average tax assessed value of 10,000 units. So, pizza and a couple of beers, and we are a much safer community. The water district average homeowner will see an increase of $20.70 per year. Many projects have been done throughout 2024 to repair the aging infrastructure, but we have some tank work, some tank replacements that are coming up, and we will need to address these as we go forward. And the Parks District submits their own budgets for their boards, and districts either had flat or slight increase, like Mohegan Lake Park and some of the other parks in the area. You hear a lot about fund balance. Our unassigned general fund balance has been strong the past 5 years due to one-time revenues, Spectra money, ARPA money, the sinkholes that occurred that we were paid for. One-time revenues are not used in the operating budget, but reserved for rainy day funds or for capital purchases and projects. During COVID, due to uncertainty, our spending was restricted, and then the years that followed with supply chain issues, the fund balance grew. We actually had projects that we were trying to do that we couldn't get done because we couldn't get the parts and we couldn't get the equipment. We're still working on our getting our sewer pump stations finished up. However, in 23 and 24, year-to-date capital purchases and improvements of $7,673,094 and $6,841,629 respectively have been infused into the town. So we've committed over $14 million back to the town doing projects, whether it's through paving, through repair and maintenance, and things that really needed to get done. As my mother-in-law always said, you know, don't hold my money in a piggy bank. Put it to use on something I could use while I'm still in Yorktown. So that's something that I feel very strongly about, and we've been really working at as a board. Our assigned fund balance in the ADL as a percent of gross expenditures is right on track with all the towns in New York State, according to the New York State Office of the State Comptroller, with the data gathered by our yearly annual reporting. Now, we'll be doing our audit starting when the book's closed, and we'll see where we stand for next year, but our snapshots look like we're right on point to where we should be. Our debt services as a percent of revenues is extremely low at 0.8%, compared to all towns in New York State at 4.3%. This is really a testament to the fiscal responsibility of using the fund balance for capital purchases instead of taking on unnecessary debt with additional interest costs. We have the money. We shouldn't really be borrowing money and paying interest on it while we are so flush, and that has been the philosophy of the board the last few years. Yorktown's fiscal stress score is 0 versus all towns in New York State, which are 3.3. So we're doing considerably well at no stress compared to some of these other towns in the state. And for our summary, Yorktown is in a good fiscal position. However, the cost of inflation has taken a toll on costs, which are now reflected in the 2025 operating budget. The town board, department heads, and employees are watching every penny to be fiscally responsible to the taxpayers. We're also going to sort of attack some of those things that we don't have control over, but Albany does. Our health insurance for municipal employees is run by the state. It is specific for the state, and we have been taking tremendous increases there over the years. Our retirement, which is supposed to be run through funds and good years in the market, supposed to be down, was actually up $500,000 this year over our projection. There's some things in Albany that just are not really making sense, and I've already spoken to our local representatives, including our county, Ken Jenkins, coming in as the interim county executive, and I have commitments from all of them to go up to Albany, along with some of our union people, to go knock on the door of the insurance commission and say, what is happening here? So I believe Assemblyman Slater is setting up the meeting for January, and we're gonna get some of the other towns involved, because these are the things that really affect our taxpayers on many levels, because it affects our employees also. And you know, there are great services that are performed by our team, and we need to really make sure that everyone is whole and everyone is looked at. And we can't do it if every time we turn around we're going up $500,000 here, $500,000 there on costs that we should be able to have some control of through legislation in the state. With that, I'd like to open for questions from the floor.
Good evening, Jacob Sting.
Hi, Jay.
I understand that citizens expect a full-service town. They must also expect the required taxes to fund those expectations. However, those citizens also expect expenditure and revenue to be consistent and necessary. For example, why does the budget have an expenditure of $119,188 to pay the salaries and benefits for 2 water meter readers when the meters should be remotely read? Is it because 400 customers are declining the new meters, resulting in the necessity for these water meter reader positions? If the 400 customers want in-person water meter reading, then they should pay a fee for it. If the 2 water meter readers are engaged elsewhere, then there is an inadvertent or deliberate misstatement in the budget document. Most, if not all, our parks are posted Yorktown residents only. How are non-residents charged for the use of our parks? And how are residents and non-residents charged for using our tennis courts and pickleball courts? I have been told that no one has checked tennis permit, player permit, for at least 10 years. Further, residents and non-residents regularly use our pickleball courts. How are those permits checked? Perhaps a water meter reader could be reassigned to check tennis and pickleball permits. How are non-residents charged for parking in our parks when going elsewhere? Could these non-residents be a source of revenue? This is especially true for Downing Park from May through October, when FDR charges an entry fee. What has been the increase in the number of town-owned or leased vehicles over the last 2 years? What has been the increase in town-owned or leased cell phones over the last 2 years? Why are we paying a PR firm to write press releases when we have staff members who are more than qualified to write general press releases? I remind the board that if we can save $250,000, we may be able to reduce the tax increase by a full %. I also remind the board that there is a significant increase in budgeted expenses without the ability of the public to intelligently inquire as to the necessity of these increases, even though these increased expenses may ultimately be necessary. Finally, I have ALS questions that I can't get answered because we haven't had a public hearing. Thank you.
You want to state those, Jay? Pardon? Do you want to state the ALS questions?
It's up to the,
Of course.
You can, it's
Go
part
ahead,
of the budget.
Part of
so.
the budget, yes, absolutely.
Let me get my notes.
Sure.
And I'm not questioning the need.
Yeah, I know.
I have
Other questions?
questions. So, how many ALS runs do we have in the district? How many ALS runs do we have out of the district?
Need in district.
Let him answer.
No,
What-
I'm asking the question.
One is in the district, one is mutual aid out of the district.
Got it.
How many mutual aid runs similarly come into the district? Because we have an adjoining town that's been sucking off our resources since Linda Cooper was supervisor. My next question has to do with billing for ALS. Why does Mohegan have a different billing process than YVAC? And how much is that going to cost us because we don't bill the same way? There's a budget line item for income from Mohegan, but not similarly from Yorktown. Thank you.
Thanks, Jay.
Thanks, Jay.
Hi, everyone. My name is Pam Curtin. I've been a resident of Yorktown for 32 years.
Hi, Pam.
I am a friend of the library, and I am also on the board of the Friends of the Library. I love the library. So that's why I'm here to talk about the library. First of all, I want to thank all of you because I've had some conversations with some of you, especially Ed, who has to listen to me wax poetic about the library all the time. I want to thank you for all your support because I know that you pretty much do understand how important the library is. So my husband and I are both retired. He's been retired 7 years, and I've been retired 2 years. The minute I retired, I joined the Friends because I just can't tell you how wonderful it is to, A, not work anymore, and have the time to read, to actually read tons of books. So we've been amazed at the amount of things that the library has to offer for all different ages. It's just great. Since I have been retired and on the Friends, I have a tendency to hang around the library. Hopefully it doesn't look like I'm stalking people. But I do walk around and look to see and how many people are there and what they're doing. And I don't know if everybody knows, but they built these beautiful new cubicles in the back. Every time I go there, somebody's using them.
It's great.
Multiple times. There's people playing chess. The Medicare, I can't even tell you. I mean, for me too, the Medicare group, they go in every other Tuesday. There's always people waiting, passports, and just, there's always kids and stuff. I mean, it's amazing how many people use it. The programs are full. There's always children's things going on. I try to stay away from it because every time I get near a kid, I get a cold. But they're always dancing around in having these great things and story times and stuff. It's wonderful. And one of the last times I was there around Veterans Day, this wonderful man was putting up this whole section with all the things he had collected and bought from World War II. And he had a fabulous collection. It was really nifty. So it's just amazing how the library is just not about books. It's just about a lot of other things. Personally, I have taken the Medicare help plenty of times when I first retired because it is very confusing. And they were great. We've used the museum passes. Something about the reference desk that a lot of people might not know, my husband reads all these weirdo mysteries, and he finds them in other places, and the reference desk will dig them out from another library, who knows where, Long Island. I got one from a university in Connecticut. I mean, who thought? They're just great. I will here advertise the book sale. Not only do I buy at the book sale every year, but I'm running it next year, so everybody come and buy books. It's fabulous. It's always nice to hold a book. I took planter gardening, and I also took native floral arrangement, which the classes were really nifty. I'm really kind of just getting into the class stuff, but all of these things are no charge to the community, which is really important. To be able to have all these resources and not pay for them. So if you think about all the things that they offer, and especially for children, they have the drumming and the music and dance and story time, and then the summer reading program is fabulous, and it's also for everybody. I just want to make sure that I can say that we need to financially support the library, the librarians, so that it can stay open on Sundays for all of us. And that's it.
Thanks, Pam.
Thank you.
Pam, now that you're retired, did you sign up for the Social Security seminar?
Oh, I don't have to. I could teach that.
Oh, okay. There's another one in December.
Hi, Larry Killian.
Hi, Larry.
Yorktown Heights. I wanted to just add to Ed's discussion of the fund balance. One of the things when I look at the budget about the sales tax in 2022 and in 2023, sales tax was budgeted, I believe, at 6.9 million for each of those 2 years. But in each of those 2 years, it came in at 9.5 million. So that was another 5.2 million added to the fund balance. We had another 2 million just from federal money. So that's further increases to our fund balance. And I'm going to have some suggestions for how we might spend that. Um, so, for example, we use a lot of electricity. I tried to add up all of the categories. I think it's about $750,000, and I probably missed some little amounts here and there. 300,000 for the sewer districts, 100,000 for just for street lights and so forth. So that begs the question, why don't we make our own electricity? So we have numerous examples of energy companies in town making money by making electricity. And we don't have to rent land or pay taxes on land, and we have a bunch of roofs to cover. So let's get started making money that way. And as I suggested last month at a meeting, when you use $1 million to lower your tax rate, that money is gone. When you invest $1 million in solar panels, for example, that money immediately starts to come back in the form of reduced electric bills. So let's explore using some of that fund balance, investing it in solar panels. However, there are other, in just nearby towns and school districts, there are other examples of ways to take advantage of cheap energy to generate revenue and to reduce expenses with a no-cost approach, working with any energy companies. So that's something that I think should be explored also. So once in a few months we're making our own electricity, it opens up other significant opportunities for savings. I went through the board resolutions, not counting tonight. I think so far you bought 11 vehicles this year for a cost of $499,000. These, and you're doing another one tonight, so that would bring it up to an even dozen. These vehicles obviously will last for many years, so as a matter of procedure, we should consider hybrid alternatives and plug-in hybrid alternatives. As I said a month ago, there's a hybrid alternative to the two vehicles that the water department purchased. If you get 24 miles per gallon with a hybrid car instead of 16, that's a 50% savings on gas. So, and you used, good job, grant money to buy a Ford F-150 Lightning truck. But if we're making our own electricity, that truck is going to save us a lot more money. Okay. Lastly, as an annual event, I am going to talk about development and suggest that we do away with our 485B tax break policy because it gives us no control over development. We should abolish it at the next meeting, and we should use a pilot approach instead. Pilot meaning payment in lieu of taxes, which allows us to evaluate the merits of each project. It makes no sense to give commercial property owners tax breaks to do something that they're going to do anyway. Excuse me. For example, giving Unicorn tax break to build luxury rental apartments at Soundview is a waste of money, because that's how they make their money. We don't have to incentivize them to do that. On the other hand, turning empty retail space into a pickleball center, that's a great idea. But 485B doesn't let you discriminate. Moving TJ Maxx from one location to another, shouldn't get it. Giving a tax break to BJ's Gas makes no sense. It's making them a fortune. They didn't need an incentive to do it. Where would they put their gas station other than in their parking lot? And we get no more tax dollars if one car versus 1,000 cars. We get no more sales tax dollars if one car versus 1,000 goes into gas up. We just get the traffic. And lastly, Caramount. Caramount, now Optum, collected their doctors on Hill Boulevard without a tax break. They collected all of their doctors and medical services in Brewster. It's a tremendously advantageous financial thing for them to do. They don't need a tax break to do it. So for that one project, it's cost us over $400,000 for that tax break. So let's take back our control of our development policy and switch from the 485B approach, which is across the board, to a pilot approach where you evaluate each project by project. Thank you.
Thank you, Larry.
Good evening, Mark Lieberman. I live on Wells Street. So costs have been going up every year, not just this year. And town boards for the last 4, 5, 6 years have held taxes flat. So it would have been nicer to have smaller increases. I know you presented it in the budget that it would have come out the same, but I'd rather see a $20 increase this year, $20 increase next year, then boom, $140 increase. It's good management. Town board members over the years have stated when they were candidates how we must bring businesses to Yorktown to help keep the residents' taxes down. So going by what I see, we brought in many new businesses. Larry just ran off a list of them. And development has been constant, and the heavy traffic is proof. So what I want to know is how much of the town's tax burden is covered by business growth. If you wanted the growth and you got the growth, you should be measuring the growth and the impact on our taxes to support these claims. When you don't measure, you're not managing. So how much exactly is the business community saving the residents? What has been the split between taxes on the business community versus the residential community over the past few years? Can you also explain why the taxable value of the town has decreased 2 years in a row? And considering that some properties, such as Oster, had a prior tax Sartoria reduction, when and how much will the assessment be increased? And will that affect our taxes? Additionally, if we didn't have the business improvement exemption tax 485B, and we had the same business growth since the law's inception, how much more revenue would we have received from the business community? That should be easy to calculate since you know how much they get each year. And I believe, but I'm just guessing, it's more than enough to cover the increase in expenses. So we wouldn't have had a tax increase. From the most recent town board discussions on the 2025 budget, It's amazing that you increased revenue by so much between the short time frame of the creation of the tentative and preliminary budgets. This is especially the case with interest income and the mortgage tax. What happened in such a short time to cause you to change these estimates so dramatically? If you've overestimated on revenues but not on expenses, will the difference at the end of the year come from the general fund balance? Every year you budget $60,000 for Thompson and Bender. You often exceed that amount every year. It's my opinion that town staff, and this is repeated from somebody earlier, but it's my belief that the duties of Thompson and Bender can be handled by staff, and you could bank that $60,000 and reduce our tax burden. I know it's just a forecast, and in previous years you've chastised me for referring to the forecast because there are so many variables such as interest income, and quite frankly, I'm appalled that you're forecasting a 6% increase in 2026, a 6% increase in 2027, and a 6% increase in 2028. What costs have you forecast in each of these 3 years to account for this 6% increase? Clearly, you should get more serious about cost cutting. We're doing 6%, 6%, 6%, 6% every year. Other towns have cut costs in tight times through resource sharing and bringing services in-house. Do you plan, and you did mention a couple, but do you plan on bringing in an expert on municipal cost cutting to reduce costs going forward? When costs are out of control, that's what you do. So going forward, what will you be doing to cut costs? Thank you.
Thank you, Mark.
Good evening. Jan Mirchandani, we have to introduce, right?
Yeah.
Jan Mirchandani.
Hey, Jan.
Hi, how are you? Before I get started on my comment, shout out to the library. I also, what she didn't mention, was they also, you can borrow hotspots.
Oh.
So, and I actually spoke with a resident who unfortunately is unable to afford internet service. And so when there's something that is coming up that is important to him, he will go to the library and borrow a hotspot so he has internet access. So I just wanted to acknowledge that and thank you. So anyway, I am going to echo some of what Mark said. I was also here last year at the hearing and asked specifically if there was a way to circumvent the predicted and frankly predictable hefty tax increase, just because we know costs are going up. And I was also, if we're being honest, kind of dismissed and was told I didn't understand the process. That all being said, here we are. Costs are going up every year. We have expenses, we have obligations. So I just, acknowledging that. But I also want to go back to the 485B tax exemption. And I think that the time is really long due for us to really seriously reevaluate that. I think that there's opportunities to use tax incentives to encourage the kinds of development that we want, but I don't know that we need to be giving away money for people who are going to be coming in anyway, doing, they have a business opportunity, they're going to be making money, they want to be here, they should want to be here, but we don't need to be giving them tax money and then shifting that burden unnecessarily to residents. So I think that that's really something that we need to examine. Another opportunity that I think we continue to miss on is something like a vacant building registry that's been used elsewhere in the county, where we are disincentivizing landowners and developers leaving buildings vacant and getting those tax write-offs, frankly. Similar programs have been used elsewhere in the county. And again, it might be a small income increase for us. It's not about the income. It's about really encouraging the kinds of development that we want in town and getting landowners to redevelop buildings rather than leaving them vacant and blighted in our community. So I think that's something that we could really seriously look at. And then also I want to echo what Larry was talking about in terms of using our fund balance to really take meaningful steps towards reducing our energy consumption, solarizing. We missed the opportunity, unfortunately, to solarize the community center when we re-roofed that. That doesn't mean we can't do it now. But I think that, again, there's money available. And as Ed said, it's an investment in our community, and I think the time is now. Thank you.
Thanks, Jen.
Hi, my name is Reese Fallon. I'm a 7th grader at Mildred East Strang Middle School, and I was a volunteer here at the John C. Hart Library over the summer. I have loved books my whole life, so I have also loved libraries for a really long time. And even though I haven't been in the area for much time, I will say this. Oh, wow. Is Hart great or what?
Yeah, it really is.
The library is a great place where you can do so much, learn about practically everything, and work on projects, get help with things like taxes and tech support, and be entertained by one of the many events, and more. As someone who's still in school and loves reading and writing, I am in a haven of knowledge and ideas, some of which impact my books and comics my friends and I are working on. Which are still in development but are being guided by what we've read and seen in the past. I enjoy my trips to Hart, if it's for an event like the Haunted House 2 months ago, or something just to get books. Thanks. It is always wonderful, and most of the time I get easily distracted by some exciting cover and dive into a series. The librarians at Hart are wonderful. They're extremely polite and always have your best interest in mind, making it a wonderful palace of books. These very same librarians, alongside others who volunteer to help, do more with what they have than any other library I've ever seen. Honestly, they should get more money put into their budget so they can become incredible. If the John C. Hart Memorial Library got more money so they can improve their efforts and make an impact on all of Yorktown and beyond. In my opinion, the library is the soul of our community. Huh. Would you look at that? Heart and soul.
Thank you, Reese.
It looks like you're going to be an author in this town. Great job.
Tough act to follow, Dan.
Tough act to follow. Beat me to that. Dan Strauss, 58-year resident.
Hi, Dan.
So I'm just going to talk about things that were talked about already, but add a few things. The solar. I'm not going to go into what I believe as far as the residential, because that has no bearing on this. Maybe it does, but anyway, I happened to see a couple of weeks ago the Rhinebeck School District, and I know we're not talking about school taxes here, it's town taxes. They just did a $1.7 million project, $1.7 million, not, okay. 4 buildings. 4 buildings. They put solar on the whole thing. Now, I don't know I don't know anything about the money involved and how much they feel they're going to save, but there is definitely an opportunity to do things like that. And I believe we are not taking advantage of it. That's all I'll say. $1.7 million, 4 buildings, all have solar on top. They're not going anywhere else. They're not going into, well, maybe they do, but that's the focus. And it's probably to save money. Okay, the ALS, first responders. My recollection is we did have a meeting about that about a year or 2 ago. First responders came about their budget that they needed. We had an intense meeting. And my comment was, at the end of it, why don't you let people know that you don't just call if your finger hurts? I believe there can be a definite program or project or whatever you want to call it to weed out people who should not be using these services. And I understand that people have needs, but I also understand that they take advantage, whether it's this town or other towns. You make the comment, well, we get a call from another town, so then therefore we can't service this town. Well, maybe the people in the other town shouldn't be calling because their finger hurts. And I'm being a little, again, it's a little Brit humor, but there's no humor in this. It's part of the budget. And it's part of staffing. And those people volunteer to do the work. And we should address this. And you should make it clear to people. I believe you have the platform to get up and say, residents of Yorktown, don't call if your finger hurts. Among other things that you could do vocally to say, make a statement about certain things. So that's my comment about that. I believe I'm going to take a chance and say 25% of the calls shouldn't be made. They shouldn't be going out on 25% of those calls. That's just my take. Okay, third thing. I can't quite comprehend that you have 2 meter readers. I mean, I wasn't aware of this. 2 meter readers, if I'm not mistaken now, at close to $60,000 a year. And back, yeah, I know. There's more to it than meets the eye.
Well,
Yeah.
we will discuss that. That's the
Okay,
language
yeah.
we know.
Well, let's go back 2 weeks ago, and you had again, a fervent discussion about the 400 people who haven't responded to the program, which is a wonderful program to make everything electronic, so they don't have to have meter readers. Okay, so my comment would be first, when we had meters, were these 2 meter readers making $180,000 a year? Or well, because we only have 400 now. How many did we have a couple years ago? 1,200? So what's the relationship with the salary to the amount of meters? Okay, number 2, we had a big discussion here about how do you reach the 400 people that didn't go into the program. Well, I didn't know we had 2 meter readers. I mean, wouldn't that be their job to go out and ask the people why they didn't respond? So again, number 3, I don't think that you were going to go out. You said that you were going to go out, Mr. Lack. Are you serious? If you have 2 meter readers, why would you be volunteering to go out? That would be their job, to read the meter and tell the people, why don't you get in the program? So if they won't respond to that, then fine them or pay the fee. It's not for you to go out there. I said I would go. I'm not going. That's their responsibility. People have to take responsibility. That's all I'll say. Thank you.
Thanks, Tim.
Thanks, Dan.
Good evening, Sarah Wilson.
Hi, Sarah.
Hi, Sarah.
I wasn't sure whether I was going to speak or not, but I heard the question, I think, raised by Mr. Kopstein, and then by Mr. Killian, commented that we'd purchased 11 vehicles in the past year. I know we have the grant for the one Ford F-150 Lightning, which is great, but on the other 11 vehicles, if we were indeed pursuing the hybrids, the plug-in hybrids, and the electric vehicles, there is grant money available to help defray those costs, so that I wasn't familiar with the number, but assuming that Mr. Killian's $499,000 is correct, a significant portion of that could be defrayed as we start to make that transition to away from gas vehicles. I did add up, how much is in the line items for gas and oil, not the fuel oil or the natural gas and the heating kind, but just gas and oil, which I assume is just for vehicles. And that totaled $128,475. By far, obviously, the police are the largest users because they're, constantly patrolling, right? The 34 square miles that make up Yorktown. That being said, I'm not sure what the current price of gas is because I haven't been to a gas station since 2017. But assuming $3.75 a gallon or something, that would be something like 34,000 gallons of gasoline going into our town vehicles every year. And then all of that obviously ends up in the atmosphere. So I would, encourage the town to try to explore as we look at the vehicles that we're adding. As somebody said, again, there's one on the agenda for tonight, Ford Explorer. Look at the alternatives, and then look at the grant money that's available. And I know as a member of CSC, I'm probably creating more work for myself to help with that, but I think it's important. And I think that's all I wanted to say. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Sarah.
Thanks, Sarah.
Sarah.
Hello, Anthony Pichette. I just have 3 discussion points, 3 requests. The first thing I was going to talk about, which seems like everyone is talking about, is the library. I wanted to. I'm glad they're all here, and the last person that spoke pretty much summarized it. But I just want to speak as a parent. I mean, there are a lot of parents, a lot of families in here. The library, especially someone who recently moved here, has been a lifesaver. My wish, if we're talking about, wish is what we could spend it on, would be increased hours. A lot of kids wake up earlier. It'd be nice to get in there a little earlier. It'd be nice to have more classes. It'd be nice to have weekend hours like we were talking about. And it's one of those things where it's in the budget and it's hard to find anyone against more funding for the library. So I'm wondering if you could discuss after this what needs to be done. Could there be a referendum? Could there be a separate something that we vote on? It could be something where we specifically ask for more money specifically for the library, because it's a jewel in the community. It's something I think we all get behind, but maybe it's like, buy everyone a puppy. Everyone's like, oh, of course, we're not going to buy everyone a puppy. That's ridiculous. Everyone would like a puppy if they don't have one, or maybe they wouldn't, or a cat. I don't know. But I'm just wondering if you could discuss that. Second, Sergio brought this up, and I want to echo this again. I brought this up. I just think it's way past time that we get a new sign for the theater. I mean, they do so much great work. People come here all the time. It reflects the community. It's a busy area. They need a sign there, and it's just imperative to have there. It helps bring in, people drive by there, they see what's there. It looks fancy. Right now, it just looks dilapidated. I mean, it looks, you talked about this several times. It just looks, and it's not, it's not like millions. It's like, what, $80,000, which is, of course, it's still a lot of money, but it's for what it can bring in and what we want. We're talking about it being a destination town. I mean, having a sign that shows we're serious and gives Augie and the crew over there something to work with is great. And I'm kind of fudging this in here, I think, a little bit, but I wonder if we could spend, once again, some money working on Veterans Road as far as driving. Just a couple days ago, I was talking to another mom who goes to YCNS as well, who has a kid. They were crossing the street, and they slowed down for the 3-year-old, which we should, and behind them, another car was honking incessantly and drove around and almost clipped the kid. Okay, it's dangerous. We know it's dangerous, that street. Something has to be done, because we don't want to walk in here one day and see something happen over there. And it's something has to be done. Closed, more signage, something has to be done. So, I don't know how more imperatively I can request that. I know it's not a budget thing specifically, but money has to be spent on it. So that's why I'm trying to work that in. So, all right, thank you.
Thanks, Ann.
Hello everyone, my name is Ophelia Chan. I'm a 7th grade student from Mildred East Drain. And so I'm here to speak about the library, why we should encourage more funding to the library. So I'm a big thinker and I would like you to think about this. In a community / town, whatever you want to call it, what is a need and what is a want? Most people might think that schools, housing, emergency stations, hospitals, these stuffs are all needs. Libraries, malls, and restaurants are our wants, but I want you to think again. The library is an essential, not a luxury, because it not just offers valuable learning resources, but fun and interactive activities for all ages and provide essential services. In this speech, I'll talk about my personal experiences at the library, why a good library is crucial to a community, and how a good library can be helpful to many citizens of many different ages. Libraries serve many different purposes for many different ages. For kids, it's a place where they can check out fun stories. For teens, a place where they can study in peace and quiet without their siblings screaming their heads off.
Amen.
I know what it's like. And a place for adults where they can get help on practical tasks, with the taxes, Medicare and stuff. I don't get it yet. For me, the library is a place where I can borrow books, where I can borrow a game, a place where I can, volunteer to get community to help with community events. It's also a place where I believe I can connect with more people and meet more friends. Yeah. Personally, for me, the library isn't just a place where you can borrow materials and read books. It's also a place where connections happen, which is what I'm going to talk about next. Now back to the beginning question. What makes a good neighborhood? It's not just the buildings, but the socialization and interaction that matters. An example of this is an event hosted by the John C. Howard Library, the Summer Kickoff Party, an event where kids from school districts all around come together for a big event that celebrates the end of their school year. So why I think this is a good event is because this event encourages more friendship opportunities, more socializations, and more connections. Libraries also play a key role in this town by offering events and programs that build connections. Librarians can also assist with tasks such as passport photos, getting your taxes done. Again, I have no idea how to do those. Or just simply helping you find a book. This role is vital to building a meaningful social bond where helping one another is key for a proper community. While events like the Summer Kickoff Party strengthens bonds within a community, libraries need the resources to keep on expanding and continuing these activities, programs, / whatever you want to call them. To build on these efforts, it's crucial that libraries get the resources they need to continue their programs and expand their services. A 50-year study shows that better investment in libraries can improve national literacy, with more people learning how to read at age 2. Another way of all these resources can be reached to a larger population is by extending library hours, such as opening on Sundays, which would make these resources accessible to more people and more community being built, the most importantly. Now imagine you're a teenager studying for a test. Where do you go for textbooks and a quiet space? The answer is this obvious, people. It's the library. So when you get there, the librarian recommends you some great textbooks, you get study, and that's good, you ace your test. Perfect. I had a similar experience one day for when I went to the library to study for Science Olympiad. The librarian gave me great textbooks, and they really helped me a lot. I hope I get a medal this year. Libraries provide fun for kids, assist adults with practical tasks, and help students study. A study by college and research libraries shows that more than 50% of students and teens that go to the library go there because they need to check out materials and books for a class. So whether it's having a storybook read to kids, having your photo taken for a passport, or just getting your taxes done, again, I hope I don't have to repeat this again, but I'm not good with taxes. Can pretty much help you out with anything for need except to defend our town from a 100-foot giant. To sum up, libraries are more than just a place to borrow books. They're a hub for connections, learning, and support. They should be considered a vital part of our town as a must, deserving the same funding as other essential services. So if the funding goes to the library, then how much better do you think the activities and programs might be? Very, very much, right? Thank you for listening.
Yvonne, I think you took my conversation about succession planning a little too serious with these two young adults here.
Got some competition.
Any other comments, budget-wise? All right.
That was wonderful.
That was very good. So, I want to answer a few things and ask some of our department heads to come up and answer a couple things. First, I want to, I'll address the 485B and pilots. First off, the town does not have the authority to approve a pilot agreement. That goes through the county. That's not up to us. Pilots also happen to hurt the taxpayer because that pilot money goes right into general fund. It doesn't go against the tax levy. So the pilots are actually detrimental, and we try to avoid those. As for the 485B, the numbers that were being given out, if you take that number and then take 12% of that number, that is the town tax portion of it. And that number is based on only 50% of newly assessed taxes. So there's no tax break on their taxes. They do their improvement, and they have to pay 50% off the first year, and then it's 55 the second, and it decreases over 10 years till they're now up to the full tax level. When you look at the incentive to get the mall owners to do something, we have Triangle starting a $10 million renovation. Once again, with whatever their assessment goes up, and whatever if they apply for the 485B, which they have inquired about, so I assume they will be, they will still pay their base tax. They'll pay 50% of what their tax goes up for doing that improvement, and then they'll be able to pay back that other 50% will come on 5% per year. The reason that's important from a business development point of view is, well, two reasons. So if they're doing it on an empty lot, that empty lot is basically getting really next to nothing in taxes. Now there's an assessed value that's higher. Maybe their 45B is higher, but so is their initial outlay. When they are renovating a space, such as the Kmart shopping center, they can now be a little more competitive. So TJ Maxx moved over. Yes, they may or may not have done that. They would have moved, I'll give you that, but they might have moved to the Cortland Town Center because maybe they have a better tax structure. Fortunately for us, with the incentive and a nice property and a growing demographics and a great library, they're choosing to come here. And in fact, they're choosing to stay here. But in fact, the two stores that are taking two of the three other spots are moving out of the Cortland Town Center and coming to Yorktown, Michael's and Five Below. That says a lot because the Cortland Town Center was a powerhouse in taking a lot of our projects away through the days. So it will help our economic stability. It will help, unfortunately, you go back to that 12% is what affects what the town taxes out of that portion of what they go in. So $1 million coming in is $12,500 for the town.
Okay, but let's pause right there for a second. I'm going to do it in layman's terms. Obviously, the supervisor is a lot more intelligent than I am. When these companies come in, not only do they get the 485Bs, or they get these tax breaks that everyone feels like we're not getting our money. They rehab the centers. They refurbish all of the infrastructure. They restructure the property. Whether they keep it empty or not, they're investing in the actual property. No one's signing a lease, not for your nephew, not for your cousin, not for your sister, unless you're getting at least 3 months for free. There's nothing different from the 3 months for free than there is with the 485B. So let's get straight with that, number one. Number two, commercial properties can actually bring in other developments. Like the pickleball and the rotation of that is a different type of business to like a Five Below or a TJ Maxx. What we're hoping is you park once, you get your groceries, you get your, I don't know, your like widget, Yvonne's smiling, your widget at TJ Maxx, your gift at Five Below for a neighbor or whatnot. Then you go across, maybe you get your Primal Bowl coffee, and then you get back in your car and you leave. If you don't do that, you can also walk, Anthony. Shake it off or not. People can walk there, right? I walk from my office, which is at the Grace Building. Let's be clear, I'm from here, all the way to Downing Park, all the way back, and I can do all of that. But when it comes for infrastructure with the 485B, it's also the investment that they're coming here and the incentive to fix it. Uncle Giuseppe's, from what I'm told, was actually on like an on-level, unelevated flooring. Am I right or am I wrong, Dan? So carts used to actually go off. So they had to rebuild it off of the swampland to actually have it. They built that. They actually put that in. So when you're talking cost to apples, let's talk about the bigger picture and not just the small, narrow picture, because that doesn't work. As far as we go now for solar, we have Yorktown 100, right? We have been investigating
Climate Smart Community Task Force.
But yet we have Yorktown 100 is also doing it with Climate Smart. And we've looked at all of our buildings. I will say this again, and I've said it numerous times. My house did not qualify for rooftop solar. My neighbor across the street did. Mine didn't. I'm sure with Climate Smart and Yorktown 100, whether we're using the YCC, which actually has what's called a DuraFrame roof, which is not a supportive roof, it's a resilient roof. Because it's a flat roof, it actually has absorbent. If not, you'll actually get roof leaks. So if it's got a peak, the water will go down. If it's flat, it ices over, and then what it does is it actually corrodes the roof and comes through the actual infrastructure. So again, solar sounds great, Larry, I'm well with you. But it's not that we're not trying to do that. Not all of it's going to qualify. And I just want to be clear of that. So like you can go into all the minutia of it, but at some point we're going to have to talk in layman's terms. 'Cause
All right, well, let me get back to the other two, though, so it's just to finish that up. So the 485Bs definitely have value, and yes, there's some things that may or may not happen without them, but they're generating income, revenue, interest in the town.
Or they're putting in
And that's really, really important, trust me. For years, we've had projects languish that they haven't come to fruition, and some of them are now, and that's a great thing for us.
Just a couple of points on that. Real quick, I know that the people that spoke against the 485B, they kind of made the assumption that, and I think it was actually said they were going to do it anyway. I'd like to know how you know that. I don't know what crystal ball we have here that we know exactly what some vendors or some property owners or some businesses are going to do anyway, with or without the 485B. So I don't think we could make that blanket assumption that we know what these businesses were going to do anyway. And in some instances, I will give you that they probably were going to come anyway. And in some instances, they probably weren't, unless they had the incentive to do so. So I want to be careful when we say, yeah, they were going to come anyway, and we just glance over that, to sell our point. I get it. I understand, that you guys are proponents against it. Secondly, I don't hear any calculation of the additional revenue from the people that have come in to the town to shop at these places that did get the 485B, that also went and shopped at other places in town, and how that has affected our sales tax revenue and other revenues, and how it has allowed certain businesses to thrive. So I mean, it's a multifaceted, complicated issue. And I don't think we could just easily dismiss it by saying, well, we're losing money, and they were going to do it anyway, and so we should get rid of it. I will give you, we should probably look into it.
Well, to piggyback on that, 10 years ago, all the stores were vacant, so you had to attract them. Now they want to come here. Look at Five Below, and you look at Marshall's or Michael's, and they want to come now. The empty vacant stores are now filling up, which is nice. And over in Triangle, they're going to do a $10 million renovation on it, and it's going to be beautiful. It's going to be beautiful.
I thought it was 20, but I don't know.
10, 20, whatever. They're going to do a renovation on it.
What's 10 million?
All right, I guess since we're just focusing on 485B now, I have some comments. I think the question is, would they have come anyway? Would they have renovated anyway? And I heard contradictory information. To me, it sounds contradictory from Ed and Sergio. Okay, Michaels and Five Below. Okay, do we know why they're moving from Cortland to Yorktown? Are they getting a different rent break? We don't know why they're doing that. There could be any number of reasons, which is what you said, Sergio. We don't know why they're coming, but we just assume that they're coming because they're getting a tax break, but they might have come anyway. I'm glad to see Triangle doing some renovations. It's our oldest major shopping center. It needs renovation. I think I heard that there were problems with some of the spaces, that maybe that's why they couldn't rent. But if Triangle wants to stay competitive and attract new tenants, they're going to have to make improvements. So they're going to have to make it, otherwise they're not going to be able to rent their space. So I think there have to be ways, okay, to take a closer look. Instead of it just being blanket, and we're giving it to places who I think you will acknowledge, like Caremount, Optum, would have come anyway because they consolidated. Mohegan, I think it was the audio, the Volkswagen expanded. They would have come anyhow, all right?
Actually,
so
Susan, I'm sorry.
we have to take a look at the law. Let's take a look at the law, and let's see how it could be fined or tuned.
So hold on, please. No, please.
I don't know what they're closing.
No, stop a second. No, I think they are, but
Five Below might not.
let me make it. But this goes to what Sergio said about assumptions. I happen to know Barry very well, who owned Mohegan, Volkswagen, and Audi. He was going to shut down. He was going to retire early. It kept that business in town. And I could tell you that for a fact because I sat in his office and had the discussion with him. And he's like, if, you know what, it's just not worth it for me at this point. I should shut down. And then he ended up selling a couple of years after, but it would have been gone. So that goes to Sergio's point, and it's not contradicting. The point is they can move here, they can move there. You just don't know what all of the factors that you just went through and what they mean to their bottom line or to their decision to move or to the community that they want to be in.
Optum could have consolidated elsewhere.
That is correct.
Well, maybe we should do a more in-depth look at the reasons and their financials before giving them the 485B, rather than it just being absolutely automatic, and they don't have to provide any information other than I spend X dollars and X dollars are my improvements, and I automatically get it. It's like a one-page, half of a page application. We don't know. As I say, maybe we should look into it more and see if there's a way to fine-tune it and to actually understand that business, the business that is either coming, and we're talking more about renovations here than vacant space, okay? Because we'd like to see our vacant commercial spaces developed, all right? Let's just take a look. I haven't looked at any 485B legislation in any other municipality. Maybe there's a better way of doing it than our very simplistic, totally simplistic look. All right.
Back under the Gilbert administration, they actually put together a board that looked at this, and there was I forget the exact name of it, but they looked at the 485B. They're the ones who developed.
No, it came under Grace's administration. 485B started under the Grace administration.
It started there, and then under Lonnie, there was the discussion about what needs to be in it, and they took that and went to town on it. I sat in on a couple of the meetings, and there was a lot of thought process there. I wasn't in for everything, but there were professionals from PCSB Bank, professionals from construction firms. So there was a lot of thought process. But look, as Sergio said, maybe it is something to revisit, and we've said that before. So,
and that's what I was talking about before. 10 years ago, when all the stores were vacant, we needed an incentive to get them here. Now we're 3/4 full. Now we're in the driver's seat. But 10 years ago, we weren't in the driver's seat.
Patrick, we're still not there because if you look at the Roma building,
I get it.
All the incentives in the world haven't helped for that.
All right, and tied to this, and it may be off point to 485B, but it's somewhat related. We have our assessor here, Gary, and this is some information that I would like, and I think everyone else would like. We know that Yorktown Green had got certioraries over the years because it had all of the vacancies. I'd like to know what's going to happen to that assessment once all of the new places are occupied. And maybe if not now, later, Gary could give us, I don't want to put you on the spot, Gary, and I'm not asking you for a specific number. I'm just saying what the process will be and at what point will it be reassessed based on the new occupancy. So I don't know if you want to do that now or later. That's up to you, Ed.
No, we'll have the department heads come up in a few minutes.
All right, thank you.
So, since the public hearing's still open, forgetting the subjectivity of this discussion, whether they wanted to come or didn't want to come, one of my questions is, how much money would we have collected if they didn't get the tax break? That's an academic process. It should be easy to calculate, and I would like to know, since the law went into place, how much money we would have
We'll
gotten.
get you an answer on that.
And you also want to know how much money we are getting with the 485B to compare both, right? How much we would have gotten if we didn't give them a tax break, and how much, and then they could have also not come, and how much we're getting when they're coming.
Well, I think we have to assume that they would have come or
I don't think
or
you assume anything. That's the...
Well,
unless
that's
you're a real
that's
estate
the only
agent
way
or
to
whatever.
figure it. And a few years ago, I did do some calculations. So as Mark said, it is a very simple thing to do to go
Well, I'll
through
have,
the years.
I'll have Gary look
But
into
it's,
it.
but it's not the big picture because you're not looking at the
Commercial
revenue
brokers would
it
never shop there.
generated. And so you can make your assumption and you could say, well, we're going to assume that they came and that we gave them the tax break. But there's no calculation. And Mr. Lieberman didn't even ask about how much money we did make after the tax break because they did come maybe because of the tax break. You know, it's a multifaceted, complicated issue, and it can't just be easily dismissed. We have to assume that they were going to come anyway, and so at that point, let's just see how much we lost. I mean, that's the question. So
Do you
We're going
think
we're going circular on this. Let's let the
let's get
meeting
back
move
to the
through.
let's get
Dan?
back to the budget here.
Well, I'm going to get a chance to talk about 485B. Mr. Esposito, it's not multifaceted. It's not complicated. Really isn't. It's kind of simple. If businesses want to come here, they come here because they want to make money. You don't come here if you don't want to make money. It's cut and dry. And whether they get a break or they don't, it's going to affect the budget a little bit. But for me, it's not a big deal. It's not complicated. As far as I'm concerned, you give the impression, though, Mr. Esposito, that you don't know what the businesses are going to be doing. You give that impression. I think you know what they're doing. I think you should know what they're doing, businesses that come in. All of you as a town board. You should know. So you know whether they're going to look for a tax break or they're not. That's my opinion. It's my opinion. You made a comment, Mr. Lachterman. It's better to have them full, that over by Giuseppe's. But what have you maybe forgotten was 2 or 3 years ago when you were discussing the overlay district, it was a different deal. There was going to be a multi-use facility over there. And I know that traffic, well, maybe traffic has a bearing on the budget. When they did that study, the traffic study, which I think, again, there are a lot of hogwash. When they did that, they said that when you have a mixed use, that was it, mixed use, you have less traffic because you have apartments on top. But now, I believe there was never going to be a mixed use. That's my opinion. I think that was kind of a smokescreen. That's my opinion. But now you have all commercial. It's all commercial, and I think it's terrific. But I really question your comment about walkability. You think you're going to walk across that parking lot?
I do.
I know you may, but you may be calling that, the EMT one day. So my comment
Well, then the drivers need to drive.
485B and any incentive for a business, I think it's okay. I think it's all right if it's handled correctly. We don't know whether, I think you should know whether they want to apply for it or they don't, because I think you should have that involvement with the businesses that are looking to come in here. That's the way I feel. And it's good. It's okay. It's better to have them filled. But where are they coming to? They're coming to renovated. They're not going to vacant. That was vacant. Yes, it was vacant. But TJ Maxx, is that a good deal? Yeah, because they're getting a brand new store. It's brand new. So they're moving out. We don't know. I still think they're going to be 500 apartments over in the Triangle Shopping Center. I predicted there'd be $1 million condos 2 years ago, and I think they're going to put apartments. I think they're going to do a mixed use, and they are going to ask for a 485B, and I think that's what's going to happen. And Yorktown is going to be a logjam. And I'll make one other comment, since you brought up about the Uncle Giuseppe's. They spent $20 million. They spent 20 mil. I know that. And the building was on a slant. They fixed it all up. That's the driver for Yorktown. If you think Five Below is a destination, whoa. Again, I'm going to say whoa. It's Uncle G's, but I'm also going to make a comment to you that if you go to Uncle G's, you may go over to the other stores, but you're not going to Five Below and go and shop at Uncle G's. Thank you.
Thanks.
I'd like to get my hands on that crystal ball. Now they know what I'm going to be thinking too. So
I would probably do.
Well,
maybe I could see what I'm thinking.
I'm back.
Please.
I agree with the 485B program.
Thank you, Jack.
I think it works. No businesses are going to share their market research with you. Doesn't happen. Do I think Uncle G brought some of these other businesses into that shopping center? Absolutely right. And I disagree with Dan. I think people will walk, do shopping in Five Below, maybe even play some pickleball, go to Five Below, go to TJ Maxx, go get their lunch, and maybe do some shopping in Uncle G's at the same time.
And after these meetings, hit Suburban for Suburban.
So I'm in favor of that. I'm in favor of the 485B. I do know, in fact, because I was at the meeting, when one business got up and said, raise one more issue and we're not building here. And that in fact happened. It was at a meeting. So.
Thank you, Jake. Thanks, John. All right, so Paul, why don't you come up? There was a lot of comment about our water meter readings and readers, and you may have to explain a little bit about county positions and what we have available and what it's like to change them with the forms.
Well, let me just address the
Sure.
meter readers. We only have one,
Okay.
not two. And when he's not reading, he's doing the installs, the rechecks, and he's working with the maintenance department. So right now we have, between the 460 residential, we have about 360 meter pits. So he's reading 800 plus meters. And then, like I said, when he's not reading, he's working with the service worker to do installs, rechecks. No, there's only one.
The budget calls for two.
I have an open position that is not filled. There's only one meter reader, one service worker, and a meter foreman.
All right, Jay, you're going to have to step up.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, well, Paul could address that, because there's sometimes positions are unfilled in the departments. And in multiple departments, yes. And sometimes it's a choice to, like the water department ends up with a lot of overtime. And if there is that problem with breaks at night, weekends, actually, how come the breaks always seem to be on Sundays?
I don't know.
And
Pipes are friendly to the workers.
that's it. So that money actually gets shifted. It's money we know is going to be used in the labor, and rather than the OT line, if you eliminate the position with the county, and this is what I was saying, you might have to have a little explanation. The county will pull the position out, and you might not necessarily get the position you need in there. So it's very, I must say, one of the most frustrating things, almost as bad as the police laws that are from 1938, would be some of the civil service laws on how they look at positions and what it takes to get a position back on the books. It could take a year to get a different position on, so we have to be very careful on what we pull out. But I think the main point is that it's James as our meter reader?
No, James is the meter foreman. It's John Vanderbrook.
Oh, John Vanderbrook. They are cross-trained to do different things, and meter readings are only 3 times a year, and have always been. Now, did we just have a problem, though, with some of the electronic meters?
Yeah, so the rechecks are, if they can't, when they push that button and they don't get the read, they need to go diagnose whether it be a battery issue, a radio issue, a wire issue. So
Did
But I
we
got
have
a question for you.
Did
Are
we have a
there-
communication tower issue just
right
recently?
right now we did a study. We do have to put in a repeater because the Hunter Brook Road area is the lowest spot in town, and we're not getting those reads.
There are areas where the Wi-Fi is just not strong. The cellular Wi-Fi is just not strong enough.
Right.
Yeah.
And the harder that
It's like
that-
always going to be the case.
right,
yeah.
and the harder that meter works to get that signal out, the faster that battery dies.
Right.
So it's not this like you set it and forget it and it's magical
Right.
and it's going to be
There's-
going to be like that forever because that's what people
This
are
is-
under the impression of.
Right.
So Paul,
There's maintenance on everything.
So
Absolutely.
the meter reader, he's doing the old meters, and he's also doing the maintenance on the electronic meters.
Yep. And when he's not involved in that, he's working with the maintenance
I
department.
just wanted to-
Could you update us on what's being done for the 400 places that have refused to allow somebody to come in to install the new smart meters?
Right. So discussed with the board, we sent out letters. We are what we're looking into now, going to be testing the residential houses for accuracy.
What if they don't allow you in to test? Then what?
That's a conversation I'll discuss with the board.
And our attorney.
Yes, to move forward with this. But the intention is to test the residential. If we don't find them accurate, they'll have the option to purchase a mechanical meter at their cost. If not, we'll install a new meter at our cost.
All right, so the board has to be kept apprised of the number of places and the specifics of those who are not allowing you to go in to test. Because if they're not allowing you to go in to install the smart meter, I assume, and I know there are difficulties with assumptions, that they may not let you in to test the meter. Is that
Right.
a reasonable assumption?
Yeah, I think people are concerned of the accuracy, and that's why they're not letting us in.
So I think that this is something that the board needs to discuss almost in advance, not wait for Paul to come back in the end of January and say, well, 100, 200, 300 haven't let us in.
He's gonna do a whole presentation, Susan, for water rates and everything, so at that point.
Well, I
it'll be
think we have to
appropriate.
anticipate. I think because we know there's a good chance we know what's going to happen, that we have to plan, that we have to put in place
Well, you
those
could
additional
Put
steps.
your thoughts together, but I think it has to be done in public and
Yeah,
transparent.
absolutely.
So
But
we'll
we
wait
get it on
until
the
he's,
agenda.
we'll wait until he's in, it'll be part of that meeting.
Soon, in January.
Okay.
Okay, was there anything else for you, Paul? I don't think so. All
Paul,
right.
I've seen you guys in action. You guys do a phenomenal job.
Thank you.
Honestly. You know what?
Paul, I have a question. About $75,000 was taken out in the preliminary budget in your special projects line. Is that going to affect any specific project that you had in mind?
Well, we have structural liner, and we have a couple dead-end extensions that we plan on doing next year, plus some vault rehabs for our storage tanks. As of right now, it looks like everything will be okay, and I'm crossing my fingers I get the grant for the structural liner, because that'll eat up a good portion of what it would cost us. But right now, as it sits, I think we'll be okay.
What grant did you apply for, and is it 100%, 50%,
60.
60%? So what will the outlay be? Once we know we have to get reimbursed, but what will that 40% share cost?
The estimates that I was getting for this project was about $300,000. So 60% of that is about 180,000.
120.
So it costs us $120,000.
So,
The
and that's the money that would have been in that special projects line?
Yep, that will come out of that line.
So if it's not there, then, and if we don't get the grant, then what happens? Would you take it out of fund balance?
That's, I was gonna say, that's not correct. He would use that out of fund balance. His grant would come out of fund balance, not his special
The
projects
grant,
line.
but if you don't get the grant, okay, if you get the grant, we're still out money for our 40%. If we don't get the grant, then we have to pay 100%. And
Right.
since we're cutting the special projects budget in order to lower the water tax,
so
I'm saying, can we still go ahead with the project
absolutely.
and take it out of fund balance? And I don't know what the
It would
fund
come
balance
out of
No,
fund
I
balance
think
anyway.
the special projects line will be fine, because if it's gonna cost us $300,000 to do the structural liner, the vault rehabs are about $150,000, and the main extensions, I already have the material. We're gonna be doing it in-house, so it's not gonna cost us much other than salary, because the material's already in our yard.
So you're saying that the $75,000 cut is not a big deal?
For the projects that are scheduled for next year, no.
Oh, okay.
Moving forward, it will be a big deal because there are, as you discussed earlier, the tank rehabs and replacements that need to be done, some relining that needs to be done, but that as of next year, the way it sits in the projects that are scheduled for next year, we're okay with the money as it sits.
We're into 2026 for
Yes.
problems.
Yes,
So we have to look ahead.
yes.
Always, Susan.
Thank you.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you.
Thanks, bud.
Thank you.
All right, and then.
If, as long as Paul is up here, I was going to have a question later on commercial water meters. Do you want to talk about it now? And that's a revenue issue.
Parts come in? For the,
Yes, so they had the training today for the commercial testing. That
To
will start.
explain the commercial testing and how it hasn't been done and why it's important.
Well, yeah, the commercial users are, the meters don't pick up low flow. So we're losing a lot of money with commercial meters. So with this testing now, we're going to change it from every 3 years to every year. This way we can keep on top of water loss.
And you said that will require a change in our town law.
Yes.
So plus penalties. So I think we have to do this as soon as possible to get the law changed, because if the testing can be started in the end of
we've been
December.
setting up all of his
Yeah, you're
meetings
doing
and
a great job
objectives.
with that.
Thank you,
And
Paul.
and then Paul, I think probably worthwhile pointing out that these tests used to be done out of house.
Yeah.
There was a fee involved only if you could find the people who would come and do it. So people did not want to come to York, all the way up to Yorktown from where they are to do these tests. Wasn't worth it in travel and labor expenditure. So I give a lot of kudos to Paul, who did the research, found the equipment, got his team trained,
And certified.
including our meter reader, and now we'll be able to get this done without generating costs, but generating income.
Well, the commercial meters weren't tested for 30 years. All right, and then by the time we got around to trying to say let's start doing them, that's when we found out that there weren't companies to do them. So
Right, and then we
that's
ran
what-
into COVID, which
that-
stalled everything.
So this is catching up after 30 years.
Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And then, just the stuff on the electric cars too, and it's something I've spoken with Swarnoff and all. We need the infrastructure in place, and that's where we're sorely lacking. There were some grant opportunities available. We're reaching out for, and we will keep pushing on that. But I can't have a fleet of even if they're mixed use, hybrids, without being able to plug them in somewhere. And I will say that I will never, ever, ever look at having a police vehicle that's totally EV, and I will never, ever look at having a plow vehicle that is EV. because they will die on the roads and create chaos. Our police vehicles actually, Brian, you could help me if I'm right. I think the majority of them run 24 hours a day. So they you know, when they're at a call, they have to remain running in case there's an emergency. So that's definitely something that we need to make sure we're safe on. Janelle, did you want to grab anything?
Yeah, actually, I have a comment about the hybrid and the electric cars. Looking at our, we keep a vehicle list, which I'm sure Phil can come up and attest to, but the majority of our cars are 15 to 25 years old that we keep, and it says that a battery pack in a hybrid car lasts approximately 8 years or 100,000 miles. So when we calculate the cost for a new car, we have to take that into consideration, that we keep cars to, you know, keep our costs down. We keep them a very, very long time. Do you want me to ask? So the question there about the cars also was about the sales tax. Do you want me to review the sales tax? I think it was Larry.
Sure, if you'd
had
like to,
about
that would be
sales
great.
tax. So he asked why our sales tax revenue didn't increase as fast as the numbers have increased. So the sales tax rate, Westchester County increased our rate in Q4 2019. It was increased 1%. The 7 years prior to that, the increase, the 7 years prior to the increase, we consistently had revenue between 5 million and 5.5 million for 7 years. After the 1% sales tax increase, the revenue started to increase each year about $1 million for the next 3 years. And then the last 2 years of 23 and 22, our audited years, we hit the 9 million. But with those changes in those last couple of years was COVID. So when we base our budget on historical data, we have to look at the trends. So with the uncertainty because of COVID, was it, you know, because people were home? Was it that there's higher sales tax due to higher costs now because of inflation, because of COVID? We don't have a true history of, we usually look at like 5 years, a trend. So even though the revenue was coming in higher, we did increase it, but we didn't increase it significantly because we do not have that data to support that. We can just now all of a sudden max out our revenue, and then next thing you know, the revenue doesn't come in. So just a little history behind how we are very conservative when you budget revenues. We don't max them out.
Janelle, I have a question. You said that the county increased the percentage that the municipalities get?
Yeah, well, the Westchester County rate was 7 3/4, and now we have 8 3/4.
Oh, that's the county tax. Okay, I misunderstood. Okay, but the way the county, when it collects the sales tax, which, by the way, if I buy a car in Yorktown or Yonkers, it doesn't make a difference in terms of Yorktown doesn't get the sales tax when you buy the car in Yorktown. Okay, because it goes to the county, other than the state share. But then it's distributed to municipalities and school districts based on formulas, population.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So only if the county gets additional revenue. Thanks.
Okay.
With the risk of Sarah and Larry and Ken throwing shoes at me. A major city several years ago, during a blizzard, experienced their EVs and hybrids not being able to work in the snow. The plows that were EVs or environmentally friendly could not push the snow. The buses and the ambulances got stuck in the snow. And using a lot of energy to try to get free, they then went dead. And you can't just tow them with a regular tow truck. So for what it's worth, if we're going to have lousy weather, you want petroleum-driven vehicles. Thank you.
Duck Jay.
Just a couple of more comments about the water meters. I understand, you know, the situation with the not the filled position or whatever. I'm not talking about that. When you did the electronic reading meters, That was an outside company, if I'm not mistaken. And I thought they were very efficient. So if you have 400 people who are outstanding right now, wouldn't it possibly make more sense to round them up and then hire that same company to do them that whole swath of 400 meters rather than piecemeal? It just seems to me that that makes more sense. I don't know the numbers involved, but because I thought they were very efficient.
Dan, the problem is that the homeowner won't let these.
No, I understand. Addressing that, having addressed that, getting past that hurdle, I understand that. But then once you have the people lined up, aligned, just like you had the whole town aligned for that company to come in, doesn't it make more sense if it's only if they haven't responded now? So if it takes 6 months or 4 months to get them all in line, doesn't it make more sense to do it that way? That's all I'm saying. Okay? And it would be a cost-saving measure.
I think we
believe.
pay for them now.
I'm sorry?
I think we have to pay for them now. So we'd be paying either our guy, who we pay anyway,
Okay,
or we'd have
all
to
right,
pay
fine.
them
Our,
separately.
guy,
also-
our guy's qualified to put them in now.
No, I'm not saying they're not qualified to put them in, but you went outside to do it
There
in
was
the
so,
first
there was
place.
so many at the beginning.
Yeah,
so
I
now
understand.
we're
Okay,
caught up.
well, it was just a thought. 400 is,
Yeah, no,
that's not chicken feed.
It's not.
No, okay, so commercial. Why don't you do the same thing with the commercial? Just hire a company and go in and put the electronic meters on the businesses.
It's a
You can't do
It's
that.
a different metering
Yeah,
service.
it's totally different.
And,
service.
and we don't own their meters. They own their own
Oh,
meters.
okay, very good. Thank you.
Ken.
Good evening, Ken Belfer, and I got stirred up over
Jay's
hearing.
over there.
I'll run after I speak.
He's going to be waiting for you in the parking lot, Jay.
I just want to comment. There was discussion earlier about EVs and hybrids, and I want to say there are two different things. And there are hybrids that are plug-in hybrids, and there are hybrids that are just hybrids. I don't have any personal experience with plug-in hybrids or EVs, but I've had hybrids, specifically Toyota Priuses, since 2004. And as an example, the one in the parking lot that I drove here today is a 2011. Original batteries, I have never, on any of the cars I've had, and then I've passed them on to children and others, and they've gone for 240,000 miles. I've never had the hybrid batteries go. Now, that may be specific to this model. I do think it's quite prudent that that the town, in looking at a vehicle purchase, research all aspects of it. And if you're weighing getting a car that uses more environmentally friendly alternatives for power, that you research it and look at what the ratings are on its batteries, etc. But you don't need any infrastructure for hybrids that are not plug-in.
Not plug-in.
You don't
That are
need
not plug-in, yeah.
any at all. Thank
But
you.
after 10 years or after 15 years that you pass the car on, is the mileage that you're getting from the battery the same? It's got to be degraded. You got to be charging it more. I would assume. That's how batteries are. They just,
I think the efficiency goes down a little.
Not too much.
Not too much.
Okay. Thank you.
Honestly, Ken, I think I could speak for the whole board. We're all about rooftop solar, trying to get EVs. The big thing for us is the infrastructure to support, and we just can't rip a Band-Aid off and go, all right, we're going to go all EV. The police can't have it, the plows can't have it, we'd like to see some of it get implemented into the fleet of cars that we have. I think we're all on board with that. There's not one of us, I'm pretty sure that, but it's just how we get there. That's all.
Thanks, Ken.
Hi, Larry Killian again. Thank you, Ken, for for explaining that. But I said hybrids, and the hybrid, the difference between 16 and 24 when you move to a hybrid, That's a 50% savings on gasoline. It's starting in cold weather. None of that applies. It's an opportunity simply to save money. Yes, you need infrastructure, but there are two ways to get solar panels, or actually three. One is what you have been doing with pursuing grants, and absolutely you should do that. But there are two other ways. Other towns and school districts right near us are way ahead of us. Hopefully we're going to catch up. And I would just say to Janelle, I wasn't criticizing your projections. I was simply making the point of $7 million that got into the fund balance, following up on Ed's comments, because the sales tax actual went down from 8-something to 6-something as a projection, but as it turns out, it was really 9.5, 2 years in a row, and that added money to our fund balance. I am making the case that use that money, invest it in solar panels, just don't wait for grants.
Thank you. Anthony, I know we are planning on a streetscaping project, at least through Commerce. I'm hoping that we have enough to get into veterans also, but looking at some other things too that I think I mentioned I want to talk to traffic about. And as for, the marquee, we're definitely going to look at. Now, you were concerned about the library, I know. I can guarantee you that the ladies sitting there have about 7 pages of notes talking about all of the great things that were said, and we will be seeing them at the next time we're looking at the budget, with your comments being quoted, highlighted, having slide presentations with blow-ups and your name and picture and all these
14
great
more
things.
7th graders.
Yeah, so
Little bit of
yeah,
music.
seventh grader working on her PhD. You think we don't know, but
We see.
Jimmy Matarano, where are you? There were some questions about parks.
About what the expenses were, like who's monitoring, like the pickleball
like
and the tennis.
resident use only, the pickleball for residents, non-residents, tennis court fees.
We're doing a really good job.
I will say that there was a question there was a comment about putting our people out in the parking lots. We would lose a lot more money, and that also, well, I'll jump into that, but that also goes into the PR firm, where we've looked at having a PR person hired.
Mm-hmm.
Salary-wise, benefit-wise, it's much more economical to use a PR firm, and also it's not just about press releases. There's a lot of connectivity that happens with them, where they've been able to find clients who are looking for places like Yorktown, bring them up to us, and then when we need to get something out there, they have been extremely helpful in a lot of the connections that they bring to the table, and we don't pay them any benefits at all. The average salary would fall into that frame of $50,000-$60,000 for a PR person. It's easy to say just throw it on to one of our other people, but we've been working with department levels as low as possible for a long time. And not all of our departments have the people that are qualified for that. It's similar to the grant writers. We have people who can do them, but a lot of times they're very, very labor intensive, and they take people out of position that need to be in position to get the things done that they need to get done.
Yvonne's very good at grant writing.
Yvonne's good at it. Diana's very good at it. Jimmy and John are good at it, but have a lot of responsibilities
On top of that.
on top of everything else that they need to get to. So
Our grant firm is great. I can't speak highly enough of them. They've already hit the ground running, and it's only been a few months.
yes, yep. Well, they just got you what $5,300 for Veteran Memorials Circle.
Correct.
So, okay. The questions, did you write down the questions for Jim on your notes? or-
No, but I know, yes, I have them. So one of them was, who's monitoring how we're using our fields from out of towners? Who's monitoring who's parking in our spots and like using our tennis and our pickleball
Yep.
courts? I do think that just being part of the rec, like that's been actively being watched by these by the Friends of Park. Also, like on top of that.
It's both we can check it ourselves. We have a roster that we can check when we go up there. We spot check those memberships. And also it's the community as well that oversees those memberships. A lot of the people that are in the pickleball community want to see revenue be created so it protects the asset. And
Yeah.
because of these fees, we're actually resurfacing and refencing the courts. So you're getting things back for the membership that they've spent.
A lot of our concerns are over at Downing. Sorry.
Well,
At Downing.
let me jump through pickleball and ask the questions. I'm a resident. I want to play pickleball.
There's a fee.
I go to Parks and Rec. I get a pass.
Yep.
Correct. Yep.
How much does that pass cost me?
That pass costs you about $40.
Yep.
If I'm a non-resident,
125.
145. So there's
25.
25.
125.
Buck and a quarter.
Okay, so different pricing structure.
Correct.
Some of our parks say residents use only.
Correct.
Which parks are those?
All of our parks are residents only.
Okay, and then if I'm a non-resident and I stop and bring my kids over to Downing to play on the swing set, what?
There is no true policing of that. It's just the sign. The parks are supposed to be for the taxpayers.
Right, and then if I wanted to play ball, most of our fields are
They're
tied
rented.
up anyway,
Yeah.
rented out.
All right, don't tell Somers, but I take my kids to Reese Park also, and it says residents only. And
Let me
I love
send
them, but I don't pay taxes in Somers.
Let me send a note to
No,
to
do
Rob.
not do that. Rob's gonna get mad at me. But I love Reese Park as well. So yes, but
That's
I think
common.
what Jay was really meaning, or I think the conversation for me was just in preservation and maintenance, and so that they don't
And
abuse
also
it.
parking, to have parking for the residents.
Parking's the big one during the summer because people park at Downey Park and then they jump through into FDR.
That's correct.
Now, is there something that we could do to minimize that?
I mean, there is a proposal. Cross court pickleball was in here not too long ago, maybe a couple weeks
Yeah,
ago,
I remember
with a
that.
proposal to kind of reimagine Downing Park and add more parking spaces. There's a couple different things that we've talked about over the years of protecting Downing to FDR, but I think a lot of our residents enjoy utilizing that trail that goes into FDR.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Totally, but
Something you could look into, Jim. When I lived in Greenwich years and years ago, we used to have to get a sticker for each year for our car.
Yeah.
To be able to go into the parks. That might be something.
A lot of towns and cities do that. I know Stanford does that as well.
If you want to research that might be a way to
Yeah, but
control
then
that a little.
you got to put somebody on that's
Then
going
you-
to go around looking for stickers, right?
Oh, yeah.
It's an added expense.
But listen,
Who's gonna go around looking for the
this
stickers?
goes also back with like the walkability. It's like as much as I believe like veterans is congested and chaotic, and it's about abundance, right? Like family, kids coming out of schools and whatnot. People need to learn how to drive. Like slow down or don't drive. Like I don't know how else to do it. Like even if it's one way, what makes me think that they're not gonna? Like at some point you gotta be like, listen, we're just gonna walk. Like everyone's gonna have to get we're all gonna have to walk. We need to take some accountability. Where's the accountability? So there's none. Okay, Jay, I agree. So I'm done with it. So I understand. I think that being a liaison at Parks and Rec, I have to say, there's some beautiful humans who are friends of Parks and Rec or also running these groups that are like, show me your pass. And then if they're young kids, they're like, all right, there's nobody who took the pickleball court. You have another 30 minutes to play. I'm going to pretend I don't see you and go. But if I see you again, you got to go pay. Like, there's been a lot of, because they really want to preserve the courts. They want to, even now, there's so much vision to redo the tennis court down by Downing and that whole parking lot. And the pathway down to the baseball fields. But at some point, people have to be accountable. Throw your garbage in the garbage can and drive knowing that you might hit somebody. Like, where's that?
Jim, can I ask, like, for example, the Downing tennis courts, and we keep talking about Downing, but I think there are tennis courts someplace else, Blackberry. I think.
Blackberry Woods, there's Shrub Oak Park
Oak.
as well, and Granite Knoll.
Is the gate to the courts open all the time? Well, I mean daytime, so that anybody could walk in, whether they're a resident or non-resident, whether they paid or not?
That is correct. There is signage with a QR code to pay for your pass.
But is the gate open if they don't pass?
It is open. We have looked into different lock abilities where we could have a combo and annually or quarterly change the combo on these locks and just email the different members of the courts. That is something we've looked into and we do have quotes on. So that's certainly a possibility if we wanted to entertain that in future
I also
years.
want to give you guys kudos. It's barely ever not used. Now it's under construction, but it is. I mean, there's load times, like just like everything of like downtime where there's not a lot of availability. Kind of like the library will see, like there's where it's a little less pedestrians because of just life. But that pickleball court, like people are committed to it.
Well, I understand that pickleball is very popular. So if you have some community people who are policing it, but that might not be the same with the tennis courts.
Well, we're
And
trying to do
I
that as well.
I'm just asking because I don't know for specifics, but since it's been raised, and I'm glad to hear that you've looked into some kind of system for
Like a
locking
fob
it.
system.
Does anybody use the
Not
tennis
even a
courts?
fob. It would be a combo.
Oh, it would really legitimately.
How expensive, just ballpark, are we talking about?
I don't want to speak publicly on
okay.
that at the moment because there's a lot of different systems that have different price points.
Is
So-
that something that's worthwhile looking at? Do you think,
Yeah.
based on, do you have a gut sense as to how much, I'll use this term cautiously, illegal use is going on?
How much illegal use is going on?
Non-paying use, let's put it that way.
I mean, I don't have a true number for you, so I don't want to make up one. But it happens. There's no doubt it happens. But we have a lot of good people in our community that are honest and forthcoming, and that's what we see most.
Thanks, Jim.
I agree. Thank you.
Hi, Jen.
First of all, full disclosure, my husband's a huge pickleball player, so.
I've heard that, actually.
Yeah, I know. So anyway, I do sort of feel like we need to kind of separate out the pickleball from everything else, frankly. And to Susan's question, how much we start policing all of our parks department, I think, are we creating a solution in search of a problem? Or, like pickleball, I will tell you, I have heard they do police themselves.
Oh, yeah.
So, again, I'm sensitive to, we don't want non-residents using our resources and degrading our resources, but at the same time, how much additional resources are we going to put into something that might not really be a problem? So I just wanted to.
When are we chasing our own tail?
Yeah, no, I agree with that.
Good point.
Especially because I use their resources too.
Yes, I just want to echo that. I mean, I've used so many parks in this county that if everyone got into like a charging bidding war on I can't go to their park because we're keeping people out of park, I mean, people are going to use our parks. It's good. They come in, they see Yorktown on the way, they check out something else in town. Let people come there with their kids and play in our parks.
Thanks, Anthony.
I don't know how big the problem really is, but
I don't know.
to Jan's point. All right.
Let's hear from our tax assessor for a moment, and then we'll move on, I think.
Or we'll be here all night.
How are you, Mr. Link?
I'm well. How's everybody up here?
I'm just smelling cookies. It's like overbearing. My blood sugar's going up by the minute. Just on the odor of the chocolate.
I got them from Uncle G's.
I know. They smell delicious.
They're back there too.
I know it's sort of on the spot, and actually I think the people said, I don't need an answer today, but perhaps we could work out for the beginning of next year.
Sure.
The 45Bs, and then talk about the reassessment of properties that are doing their renovations and how that tax is structured through the building department. I believe a lot of that goes, correct, based on the cost of the renovation.
Sure. As far as the 485B is concerned?
Well,
or?
no, just in general too. What are some of these new buildings bringing us when they do a renovation?
Well, I mean, the question, we take a look at that every May 1st of every year. Okay, that's our taxable status date. So we go out, we get our permits for all these improvements. We go out and we put value on them. So with the 485B, we're obviously talking about, like you said before, it addresses just the improvement. As far as you brought up the tax certiorari's and some of the improvements that are done on that, like the Uncle Giuseppe's plaza there, I mean, we would obviously take a look at that by May 1st of this upcoming year with the work that's being done, and then value that accordingly. So, yeah, absolutely, those renovation projects are taken in consideration every year.
Is it possible to put a sunset on a certiorari? I mean, is that a dumb question?
A sunset meaning?
For example, I come in, I own a business, I have some empty stores, I apply for a certiorari, we grant the certiorari through, it's 2024, we grant it to 2026. And then the certiorari expires.
They actually go backwards.
Yeah.
So if they come in 2024, they could look for change of assessment going back, I think, 3 years or 4.
No. You would have to, if you're going to do a tax certiorari, it starts with a grievance process.
Right.
Every year.
You could
So
grieve.
you would have to grieve your property, and then you would file a tax certiorari after that. And so it continues on until it is settled. So you're not going actually back in time. You're going back in time because some of these things don't get settled for about 4 or 5 years.
Okay,
That's
which
part
is
of
the
the
number I'm
problem.
using.
So
But then that lowers the taxable value, and that stays at that level until renovations are
Correct.
So it's not like
That-
they
that
could
is-
go each year and come down.
Right. And that is
No,
really
I
the only
understand
way
that.
we could change assessments, by the way, is if they've done work to their property.
Once the certiorari is granted.
Once the certiorari is granted, yeah.
All right.
How often does that happen, that we actually go back and say, hey, you know what, you fixed it up? Good luck with your last certiorari, it's gone.
Well, yeah, I mean,
right,
yeah,
I think that's
May
your
1st.
Well, yeah, it's twofold. One, we have obvious improvements, which you get through building permits and so forth. So, for example, has the assessment for Yorktown Green changed since Uncle G's has been there, which has been about a year at least, or more?
No. So we will be taking a look at that this May 1st.
Okay, and let's say, and TJ Maxx will have been occupied. I don't know about.
I would imagine that most of it would be done by that particular point. We can also do partial assessments, meaning that we don't need to wait until it's completely done or for a C of O to be issued. So as of May 1st, we determine what percentage of the property is complete and value it accordingly.
Okay, so we could expect that Yorktown Green assessment will go up in the next tax roll.
Yes, we can expect that.
Okay. Now, the second part is that if they got a certiorari because they had vacancies, and then the vacancies are filled, but there are no significant building permit renovations and no major improvements, but the income to the owner has definitely increased. How do we know about that to increase the assessed value?
Well, I mean, if there was a reduction in assessment due to tax certiorari's and no improvements were done, where they just occupied the space, is that the question?
Yeah. In other words, the reason why they qualified and got the cert was because they had a lot of vacancies.
Correct.
So it was down 20%, whatever the number is.
Yeah.
Now the space is occupied with no improvements other than the minor improvements to satisfy the new tenant. Does that change because now the income to the owner has changed significantly? How do we know about that?
Well, the answer to that question is potentially, okay? I would need to take a look at that. A lot of those kind of things like income statements and so on, not so easy to obtain. They're not so willing to give those over, even with tax certiorari proceedings, unless it benefits them, of course. So we would have to take a look at that. Most of these places do some sort of improvement to them when you do have a
And that's
new
your trigger.
tenant going in, right? So
like Big Bus, for example, I think that property had a cert. Has that been reassessed?
Bird
not
Bus?
that
Bird Bus.
Bird Bus has a pilot.
Yeah.
They entered in a pilot agreement when they came in.
yeah, there's a pilot agreement on that.
All right.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, I'll say this: a lot of these, I've been actively involved in trying to get a lot of these empty stores rented, and often there are some blatant, in my opinion, landlords that just blatantly
The roadblocks to getting it done.
aren't too concerned about rent. I mean, I've one landlord. I brought several people. Matter of fact, Ed and I together have brought several people to this one space, and
It's a nice
and we're
write-off.
just not getting the cooperation from the property owner. And I got to tell you, I'm seriously thinking about sponsoring some type of legislation that gives us some teeth to say to a property owner, hey, listen, you got to be actively trying to rent this place. I brought you several viable businesses from very good sources that are going to be successful, and I can't get a hold of you, or you're ignoring my calls, and I speak to real estate agents, they say and so I need to be able to do something or have some teeth to say, hey, listen, I know you like the tax write-off that the place is empty, but if you don't want to be in Yorktown, I'll point you in the right direction, the town line. You could leave. I don't need you here. If you want to be here, I'll be a business owner's biggest fan, and I'll help them as much as I can. But if you don't want to be here, you can get the hell out.
And then what about when you tell them, well, okay, well, if you're not going to rent it, why don't you clean up the property and at least make it presentable and curb appeal, fix the sidewalk, fix the walkway? How many arguments do you have with those?
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah, we'll get to it.
We get code enforcement on
Well,
that.
that's the property maintenance code, too.
I know, and even when we enforce it, they're like, I'd rather take the hit, because you have to understand something. It all goes against their gains. If a developer or a landlord has multiple properties, all the losses on a property, whether it's our fines down to the lack of rent, go against their rent roll. When it goes against their rent roll, it means that they don't have to pay the taxes in like Rye or somewhere else. And I see it all the time. I mean, maybe it's my real estate, guru stuff, but at the end of the day, I'm like, listen, you got to play. And I can't go there and like cut off their Con Ed. That would be very mean of me to do. So I got to figure out how to get them to do it right. I only want them to pull their weeds, right, Dan? Make it look pretty. They don't even want to do that for me.
Gary, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Have a good evening.
Everybody have a great
All
night.
right.
You too. Thank you.
Can I have a motion to close the?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Does everyone feel comfortable adopting today?
I just like, I have some,
Hold on. I'm sorry.
on.
I want some comments.
Sure.
Oh, Susan wants to do her comments first.
Let me just see, some of them have been dealt with, the water ones, the cell phones. I have to thank the library. I've been coming to budget hearings for more years than I'd like to remember. I think this is the first time I've heard support for the library. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And I'd love to see Sunday hours extended. I have to look carefully, and it's only part of the year. All right, I think that has been answered. The PR firm. This is one of the things that I have talked about for multiple years since I think in 2000. Won't count to 2021 because we were doing Destination Yorktown. That was a special program, and after that died, we just kept on the $60,000. Some of the press releases are not necessary. I think if we have one that says TJ Maxx is open, I don't think we need a press release on that. And I think they are so simple and so basic that we don't have to hire somebody in-house, that somebody from the appropriate department could write something. Atlantic Appliance broke ground. So what?
Susan, you are aware that we're the lowest, one of our town employees are practically the lowest paid town employees in the neighboring area.
That has nothing to do
But
with
now you
it.
want to add them another job.
No, what
I just want to
No.
be clear here.
Well-
I'm not saying it's coming out of anyone's pocket. I don't spend nobody's money. So let's be very clear. I hear what you're saying. I also understand that to do great things, it's either Yorktown wants to stay just Yorktown, or you want other neighbors to hear about you. I moved here 6 years ago. Before 6 years, I barely knew Yorktown existed. So what I'm saying is this PR firm is trying to get us on multiple levels. But however, our town employees are amazing humans, loyal humans that some of them live within the community. And I truly believe if you look up on Google or any of these county things, we are one of the lowest paid county, and we keep our money and recycle it within our community and community members. To give them another job is to pay them and then also know that things are not going to get done. I just want to be very clear.
All right.
So it's not that simple.
Do you think that somebody in one department, cannot write one 300-word press release?
What department, Susan?
I don't know. First of all, I don't see the value of the town, whether it's staff or a PR firm, writing a press release that said Atlantic Appliance broke ground.
Actually,
And if-
I do
and-
though
and-
because I'm a mother. So as a PTA member and people that work in the community, when I go to Somers and I work with the Somers PTA, we look and see what are the new businesses within the town. A, for donations. B, for support. C, for our toy drives. D, to understand like if they're willing to contribute. I'm not saying I hear what you're saying, but I think you're undervaluing also how far it can reach us, whereas what it's not, and giving it to a town employee for $300. They don't have that kind of time.
Well, then you
Tom-
know what?
Tom-
At
Thompson
our
and
town
Bender.
board meetings, one of us can announce. We announce. Well, we're going to have a parade on this day, and somebody's going to have a grand opening on that day.
Susan,
So we
that's
can-
just
we
basic
can
stuff.
Say some of that stuff. Other things can be promoted. If TJ Maxx wants to celebrate its opening, they should do a PR. They should have their own PR person to go contact the local papers and say, "Look, we have this magnificent new
And I'm sure
facility."
they do.
They
And
have-
I just think it's $60,000, and I have some other cuts that I will suggest that basically would total roughly 1% on the tax rate. But the PR firm is one
Yeah,
of
but
them.
the PR firm has access to Channel 12, the newspapers, a lot easier than
Well, the
any one
legacy,
of us in
the
here.
legacy media also.
No.
Yes, 100%. Yes, it's your opinion, and I've seen them in action. And they pick up the phone call, and one phone call they have Channel 12 on the online.
And you can do that. And the question
what?
is, what are we trying to promote? The town doesn't have to promote that TJ Maxx opened up. Okay?
That's small potatoes,
You
but
know
the
what,
other
you-
stuff.
you know what,
So-
I'll
all right,
backtrack.
that's the other- okay,
Susan,
there-
basically the promotion is what we were talking about in Yorktown being a destination. Destination Y is not over. It's not something that's ended.
Continuous.
It continues on, and part of that is the communities around us and businesses being able to turn on the news, look at a paper, see the great things happening in our library, in our business community, in all of these areas and aspects. You know, Yorktown is a gem. Let's not let it be a hidden gem. People want to come here. They are paying big bucks to live here. Houses go on the market. They are gone like that.
Our neighboring
It's-
communities pay for their garbage. They're this, they're that.
All right, I won't belabor that. I won't belabor that. All right, let me just go on to some other things. We've talked about 485B. We've talked about the water. Okay, let me just talk about two other areas that I would like to suggest cuts. One, I realize I've heard a lot from residents who are obsessed and upset. Upset is the word. The 6.6% increase in the town tax, which is just the general highway and library fund. And as I wrote to somebody earlier today, I said, look at it in terms of dollars. And I think you explained that.
$9.24 a month.
And I think the other alternative, if you don't like 6%, is to cut some service. And I don't think anybody wants to see cut service, to say that highways should wait until the snow is 2 inches before it goes plows, or the library will be cut more hours, or we'll lose a police officer, or we won't maintain our parks. I don't think anybody wants that. So think in terms of dollars, and thank you for translating it into dollars and cents, because I think that's what's important.
And I will say, and I forgot to mention earlier, I'll apologize for Dave Paganelli. He wanted to be here tonight. But because there was a possible icing condition, he did not just want to go out there and just start salting early. He wanted to monitor. He's been out on the road. He's been driving around, slamming on his brakes when there's no one behind him, so he could feel if the road is slippery.
That's one way to test
to avoid salting, because what he did, he put it into dollars and cents. If he started salting today without doing this, which he didn't need to because it did clear up on our side, about $40,000 in salt. So, you know, like you said, it's there are some services. You talk about responsibility. You know, Dave took it to heart today. He's out there, like I said. It's not that he's not out there all the time. And no, you're absolutely right.
They
on that,
say
too.
that if we want the service, it's like the additional cost for the advanced life support. This is critical. I hope nobody here ever needs them. But when you need them, you want them there for that 10 minutes that they're going to possibly save your life. When the town board met at the budget meetings, I made a suggestion that we eliminate a new position for a deputy town engineer. And the board rejected that cut. I just want to let the public know again about that cut because there's been no discussion and probably nobody realizes it because it's way, way back in the back of the budget. Okay. I understand the need for a deputy town engineer because a deputy town engineer would be would have a PE. He'd be a professional engineer, which is a higher level of certification, which is needed to sign documents. And certainly our current engineer can't be there all the time. So I see the value of having a deputy. However, that said, the salary, and then we already have an assistant engineer, civil engineer, but he is not a PE, and I've been told that he doesn't want to become a PE. That assistant engineer, according to the money that's been budgeted, would be lower than what the assistant is who has less qualifications. So the amount of money that's budgeted is a phony, absolutely phony number, and you would have to pay a lot more to get that kind of person. I think the department has to be reorganized. It could be operated more efficiently. And so I was opposed to adding that position, and I will say this again at the time, if it comes up that somebody is going to be hired. The other expense that I thought could be eliminated was a small expense, but when you add the PR firm, the engineer, and this third line together, you get roughly a 1% cut in the tax rate, and that's about $23,000 for foreclosure expenses. Over the years, I have closely monitored the unpaid taxes, which are roughly $4 million. All right. Years ago, we went through the foreclosure procedure, and we actually foreclosed on property. It's a lengthy court process, and then we were able to resell the properties that we acquired and put them back on the tax rolls. When I asked during the budget hearings why we haven't been spending money on foreclosure, I was told the state law has changed, and now the procedure is just a disincentive for the town to foreclose. So we have no plans to foreclose on property. We haven't spent that money since, I think, 2022. So why is $23,000 in that budget line? It's just not necessary. Call it the padding that's there to pay to some other expense that's unanticipated, and that will come up. Going back to revenue, I am concerned about the additions to the revenue line between the tentative budget and the preliminary budget, especially the sales tax line. I don't want to be called a Cassandra, but I'm just very cautious. I think the Comptroller's Office made good estimates based on the 5-year average when she did the tentative budget, but once expenses increased unexpectedly after the town board met for 2 days to go over the budget, you said it's like $630,000 roughly of unexpected expenses, which really would have blown the budget. Okay, so what they did is they just to cover that, they just increased revenue, and I am concerned about that, but I hope I'm wrong. I think we also have to do more to increase some revenues because we are very dependent on something like the sales tax and the mortgage tax, which we have no control over. So if nobody goes out and shops during Christmas, we're going to end up with some less money. There are some revenue lines that I think we have to look at. One of the ones I have talked about for more years than I'd like to remember is we have a master fee schedule, which is in the very back of the budget. So people pay for dog licenses, for building permits, for wetlands fees, for a whole variety of fees. We have a section called legal fees, all right? And there are legal reviews when our town attorney has to review variance applications, stormwater agreements, special permits, site plan applications, and so forth. These range from $250 to several of them are $1,000. The last time I checked, these are never collected. This work is done. I mean, this work is being done. You just have to look at the zoning board applications, agendas, and you'll see the variance applications. I know from my time at the planning board, there are many of these applications. We have them in our master fee schedule. We're not collecting them. If the town attorney is here, I'd like to know why we're not collecting them. If the town board doesn't think the fees are reasonable, wants to eliminate them, then we should eliminate them. But as long as we have them, I think we should collect them. I think I've already talked about the water meters and the commercial water meters. This is significant money that we're losing, and I hope that the town moves quickly on both of these things. And then there's a few other minor things. I think there are collection bins. These were laws that were passed by previous boards, and they're good laws. We have the collection bins for the used clothing. I think it's a $300 fee, and it's an annual fee. It should be collected. I've also been in communication with the building inspector about fire inspection fees. I'd like to see how those are being collected. It's not going to make a huge difference in the budget, but every little bit counts.
I thought he gave you a breakdown of that.
Yeah, but I also sent him some additional things, email later today, that I think we need some more figures, on that, and especially the operating fees.
Phil, come up a second.
So just to address one of the lines where you referred, you said what they did. I mean, that was the sales tax line. I was a proponent to raise the revenue on that line because I thought it was extremely conservative, which is a good thing. And Janelle is trying to do the right thing, and she has done the right thing. But in 2022, we had 9,482,000. 2023, we had 9,504,000 in revenue from sales tax. In 2024, where we budgeted 8.5 million, and in 2025, we're budgeting 8,750,000. So I don't remember what the preliminary, what the tentative was.
It was only a $100,000 increase.
So we increased it 100,000, but you made it sound as if we blew it out of the water and we picked some number in there that isn't realistic when you average it out over the last 3-4 years. That number is fiscally conservative. So,
and one of the
way we characterize things sometimes is just not fair. And that's only one line. I could pick apart
How
what you
about
said, but I won't do
the
it.
interest line?
I was speaking.
Sorry,
and I don't want to cut
apologize.
you off either. So,
Apologize.
but because then it gets twisted around. But I appreciate it.
All right. I think the other line that went up significantly was the interest line. If any of you have money in a savings account, I think you've seen the interest rates going down. Mine certainly has gone down. And who knows what's going to happen with the national economy? There's inflation. How is the Federal Reserve going to cut the interest rate? Are we going to have other kinds of changes? We just don't know what's going to happen with the economy. I can remember. I'm older than most of you here, and I've lived through multiple business downturns. And I can remember being at a board meeting in 2008 when the recession started. And I remember how none of the income projections were going to come through. And the town board had to start telling department heads, cut this, cut this, cut this, cut that. I don't want to be a Cassandra, but I'm concerned about especially the interest rates because there is so much uncertainty about the economy, and we have absolutely no control over that. And in fact, the interest rate is going up, and I thank Janelle because what she explained at one of our work meetings was that the town has gone to a new system for interest, and we are getting more money. In general, we're getting more money.
So, Susan,
but interest rates are going down, and yet the income revenue projections from interest rates are going down, but the mortgage rate is also going down on the assumption that interest rates will go down. So interest rates will go down, and we'll get more mortgage tax, but the interest rates will go up, and we're getting more interest income. I have a problem
Susan,
with that one.
if I may. So right now, I hate to say it, but inflation for government is a good thing because people pay more for things and they pay more tax. It's unfortunate, but we are the beneficiaries by collecting sales tax on an inflationary environment. I believe I mentioned a couple times when we were talking in the work session or actually the meetings when we went over budget. I follow the market very, very closely, and even with the 75 basis points that have been cut, the interest rate has stayed stable or gone up. So we're not experiencing normal markets. And then the balance of or the seesaw of mortgage rates and interest rates, the mortgage tax and the interest rates. Honestly, you have to hit one or the other because it's definitely a seesaw. One goes up, the other goes down. So this is all stuff that I know we spoke about when we were down here when Sergio was pushing it. Janelle really spent a tremendous amount of time going over it that weekend because we had to come out with the preliminary, and she did tremendous work, and it wasn't done in a vacuum. We did it here in the meeting, and then when she wanted to look it over and wanted to bounce it off, I was here that Friday night, and she was able to get in touch with me. Janelle probably text messages me more than my wife at this point. So
Carol's watching.
That's okay. She knows because she hears me responding. So, there was a tremendous amount of work done by our finance department, who's all still here hanging out, and I thank you, ladies, and David and Janelle, because they really put a lot of work into this. It was
it's a
right.
it's a mammoth undertaking. Absolutely.
So I appreciate the hawkishness watching over it. I do feel very, very confident that this was looked over extremely well, and that there's definitely a balance, and I'm hoping there's even a little fat on the bone, to be honest with you.
I'm looking at the mortgage tax line, and in 2022, it was 1.881 million. In 23, it was 1.1 million. In 24, it's 1.25 million. And what we did here was for 2025, we budgeted $1 million. I think that could go up probably another 100,000, in my opinion. Still be fiscally conservative, save the taxpayers and on the money. You said you saved about 1%. We could probably egg these numbers up a little more, which would be fiscally conservative and reasonable given the previous years. We're not just making numbers up. We're looking at history. And we could probably come down a little more if we wanted to take a little more off of that. But like I said, this is fiscally conservative, and so it's a mischaracterization that we pulled money out of a hat and we fudged the numbers, which is kind of what you were alluding to, which is why I took offense.
Look, honestly, Janelle and David and company, you guys did a phenomenal job. If you're running your household, you want 6 months of savings to pay your bills. We're very, very conservative, and I'm happy that they're very conservative and not pushing the envelope. So,
yeah,
that's all. That's just my 2 cents.
Yeah, well, I just want, like I said, I wanted to look at it as
word about it.
globally, and now look, it's appreciated. We need to look at it at all different angles. Every viewpoint on this is good. I think that right now we're in the middle of 2 viewpoints between you and Sergio, and I think that I always say a compromise is something where both parties walk away unhappy for a little bit, but and that's a budgeting process here. Look, even $924 per month is a lot for some people. I understand that. If we had done the gradual increases over the years, it actually would have been more money that we would be paying at this point, because that money compounds if it was on 2%. So those would have actually cost us more, not only this go around, but every year coming through. So we've done the right thing for the town. We did not raise taxes when there was no need to, even though there are philosophies that say raise a little bit, but fiscal responsibility said we need to work off our fund balance a little bit. We need to take care of the projects that we can, and not put the burden on our taxpayers. It's already been there. It's already on them. Let's use up that money. Let's get some things done. And now we're looking at a different scenario. Like we said, $924 a month for your library, for your parks, for your police, as we see our chief back here still, and Brian back there, for your professional offices, for your town clerk's office, who does a tremendous amount of work. The only one no one's going to be happy with is our tax office, Barbara. Sorry, the tax collector. But even she does a great job, and her department does great, and our assessor, and our legal. You know, all of these things, our building department, our engineering department, all of these services that come out of that ADL line, that town tax line. That's a tremendous amount we get that a lot of towns do not have they don't have a great library. They don't have a great police force. Talk to any of our people that live in Cortland and ask them how well it's worked out when they lost their police department to county and or state. It's not the same. I worked in Cortland during that transition. It was horrible. I thank God every day we have a police force like we do out there patrolling, keeping us safe, doing a great job. Is it expensive? Yes. I remember when I was running for office, it was someone who wanted to cut the police department. I know I was knocking on doors and our residents, you know, someone brought up the point before, do you want to make cuts? And I'll tell you what, there was maybe 1 out of every 200 people that wanted to cut our police department. And usually it was someone who was a disgruntled police officer, you know, usually from another municipality. So we get a tremendous amount for that money. And I think that, and I'm not only looking at this town board, but our town boards over the years have really done a tremendous amount to build up Yorktown. And I think it's important to keep doing that. It's important to keep looking into the future, but to do it in the responsible fiscal way we've been doing it, and to, you know, love and care. You know, there's not a member on this board who sits here and says, "Wow, this is worth worth my big salary." You know, it's a group of people who say, "We want to do good for our town." Everyone who has sat up here. I have, you know, whether I agreed with them philosophically or not, I have never met a person who sat on this board who didn't want to do the right thing for their community. So,
I just 3 quick questions, three
Sure.
very quick comments. I apologize forgot to ask them. On solar, I'm not going to talk about hybrid cars, but I would like to remind my colleagues that we really need to do an RFP to get solar vendors interested in our town properties. Okay, I think we can take a look at the one that was done, I think about 2 years ago, do some changes on it, but I think we have to act on that. Somebody mentioned why we couldn't do it on the roof. I think Luciana explained why we couldn't do it on the ACC roof. We can't do it on a Shrub Oak parking lot. Let's see what we have and let's use it for what we have. The other thing is, in the very back of the budget book, there's this capital plan. I urge the board in January, we really need to sit down and take a look at a 1 to 3 to 5 year plan to take that fund balance and start meeting with key department heads and say what we need to do, whether it's parks, whether it's highway, whatever. You mentioned streetscape, but we need to have a plan rather than just kind of do it piecemeal ad hoc. And I think the community needs to know this, and we need the community feedback. So I urge you to do that in January. That's why I think we need.
We actually already started. The capital plan is outdated. That's in there. And
It's outdated. It's very difficult to read. Some of it is more wish list. Then there's a whole bunch of what's already completed. I need to see a 2-page plan. We're going to spend $5 million.
Already
$6
working
million.
on it, Susan.
Yeah, that's a
Well,
great idea.
we need this, and we need chair. And then one other question, and I think the attorney is there. Can I have some feedback on the question of legal fees and why we're not charging revenue for them?
Adam, can you come on up? I know you explained it to me, but you're much better at explaining what the customary time is versus the chargeable time.
So, there are occasions where legal fees are charged back to developers. It really depends on the scenario.
We're not talking about those.
What's your question then? I'm sorry.
Well, it's
We're
part
not
of
talking
development.
about those like wetlands fees the ones that are in
She's talking about the fee schedule
the
for
ones
like
that are in
looking
the
at
The master fee schedule.
Yeah, I mean,
that
so.
it says that you have to review deeds, conservation easements, variance applications, those that are not being charged for. I wasn't on the board when these were adopted, so I'm not arguing for or against it. I'm just saying they are there. Why aren't we charging for them?
Yeah, I mean, the departments could charge them. Ultimately, what generally happens is that if I'm reviewing something, there's no additional cost to the town, right? It's subsumed within the monthly retainer that my firm charges the town. On occasion, if something is sophisticated, significant, complex, it could go above a certain amount of hours, and there might be a charge back to the town, in which case we would look to the developer or the applicant to satisfy that.
Well, if we take what you're saying that is part of your retainer fee, then maybe this has to be taken out of the master fee schedule. Why is
It needs to be better defined. I've already had the conversation with Adam. That's why I was saying he gave me the answer, but to fit into that description, so we need better definition on what's included and what becomes above and beyond customary.
And even if it's part of his retainer fee, it's just like the building department still charges for a building permit, even though it's part of their basic salary and part of their daily work. And we charge for other permits. And when Diana's office issues the multiple permits that you issue, the staff is there. It's part of recouping the revenue to pay for that staff. And it would recoup the revenue paying for the retainer fee. So I think this has to be looked at. Again, I'm not saying that the fees are the right fees or the right amounts, but it has to be looked at, and then we need a board discussion about if we want to change it.
Yep, and once again, a lot of it comes down to, if Adam's looking at a deed that's a 2-3 minute read, granted, we can probably beat the taxpayer over the head for a $100 fee or something on it. There's some things that should be included in your services to the town as the taxes are paid that cover some of that legal. And there are some things that should be billed for, and that was where our conversation ended. And he is looking at some of the values, prices, some of the things we have out there, and he'll bring back to us a reevaluation of what fees actually could be there that are not, grossly inappropriate. To be honest, I'm a big fan of being fair to the taxpayer.
I'm not wedded to these fees, but we have looked at building fees. We have changed those. I think there's some other roofing fees that the building inspector suggested changing.
Yep.
I'm not opposed to that. I'm just saying if we're going to have a fee.
Yes, let's have it be a reasonable fee.
When somebody gets a dog license, Diana's office charges for their dog license.
$12.50.
Whatever it is.
Well, and speaking of that, I noticed on the under the preliminary budget for master fee schedule, the town clerk's changes were not included in that. Inadvertently, they were left off. So there is a addition for dogs in their licensing fee, and an up in the filming permits, which we do a lot of. But we charge $250 and $500 for filming. We've raised that to double, $500 and $1,000, which is fair. There's a lot of administrative costs with that,
Absolutely.
especially with the last filming that's still going on with a lot of changes. And dog licenses haven't been changed in over 14 years, so we do need to up it a little bit.
Do we know what that number was that you suggested? Because we could add that, and then if
15, it was 15 and 20.
15 and 20. What is it, 20 for?
The unneutered dog.
Oh, okay.
Adam, I look forward to getting your memo on the suggested changes.
Can we add that,
Sure.
Chanel?
Yeah, I have that already.
Oh, you
so
have it,
that would
okay.
change. And then I have one minor change before we adopt.
Sure. And Phil, if you could let us know about the bin collections. Thank you, Adam,
I think that's a building department issue.
The bin collections, is that R&R?
No, I think
Like the
it's
collection
building-
bins?
No, the building department issues permits for the collection bins.
Oh, that's not you?
No.
Okay.
it's a
talking
building
about
I did know
recycling.
2 years ago we collect. You talking about the clothes?
Yeah.
No. Oh, yeah, those closed things.
Yeah, I know that 2 years ago that generated about $10,000. but that's like.
And I
2
think
years ago.
it's an annual permit.
I think the building department said they did collect.
Well,
They only have like two
Yeah, there
or
were
something.
only two.
Yeah,
so
townwide.
From when we
But do we
asked
have
them.
more of those collection bins? I don't know. Again, we have it. If we have it, let's charge. And
Yeah.
it could be a reasonable fee depending.
No,
on
it is,
certain-
and they were charging, so.
Yeah.
All right. Janelle, what were your,
Yeah, so like Diana said, we just have the two minor modifications to the master fee schedule that we missed for the clerk's office. And then also, I sent the board that we just need to move the contingent contractual line that we had in the appropriation. So townwide, it was 1.509615 million. And we are gonna allocate that back to the appropriate salaries, longevity, medical lump sum, K-9 stipend, and building maintenance stipend, lines.
So I just,
It's a net impact of 0 to the budget. It's just reallocating so they're in the correct categories.
fantastic.
so I just had one more point before we move this forward, and, you know, we mentioned that there were, two ways to bring the taxes down, and one was increasing revenue, and the other one was decreasing expenses. There is also another way. I brought it up at the meeting. You know, I wanted to use a little extra of our fund balance to put toward the taxes to bring it down. It's $250,000 per point. I know we have something like what is it, 6 million uncommitted or something like that. What is it?
23 million.
Yeah.
25 million.
Ed,
We
I was
have, I
asking
think,
you.
6 million committed. Is that?
Yeah, 6 million is committed.
And then what's
And then in unassigned, we started the beginning of the year, I think it was at 23 million, but we've used, like I said, 7.8 million, and we also have, I think it's another 11 million, not reserved specifically, but in the works, working with departments for certain projects that we know are coming down the pike.
Gotcha. So anyway, one of my suggestions, along with the revenue increases, was to use some of the fund balance to give back to the taxpayer, because it's taxpayer money. And when we talk about this, you know, I take it very seriously about spending taxpayer money. And so that was another one of my suggestions. And we don't have to use the entire fund balance. You know, like I said, 250,000, 1 point. 500,000, 2 points. So we just went from 6.6 to 4.6. And I think that we could use that as a parachute to ease the tax rate hike for the taxpayer. I'm not saying that we commit, you know, the entire amount to get to zero, because that would be irresponsible. I think we could have used it a little bit. I understand the arguments against it, you know, and they were very good arguments as well. So, I mean, that's pretty much where I was at, because I did go through the budget. I sat there when my son was getting his surgery in the hospital, and I went line by line through everything. And aside from cutting services, I came up with about $120,000 that we could cut from all departments all across the board. It wasn't a lot. It's lean. And Janelle and her staff have done a tremendous job. I just want to say that. That's all.
I just have a comment about the taking money from the fund balance to pay operating costs. That is very, very dangerous.
But
The
we're
fund
doing
ba-
that already.
Well, yes.
Yes.
Over the several years, the town has become addicted to its fund balance and has used that. I think now it's like $1.45 million. It used to be zero. We didn't take that, and then it was like
We had debt.
We
not
had no
talking
fund
about. We're not
balance.
talking about debt. We're talking.
No. What I'm saying too is I agree. I'm agreeing with you, but because one of the biggest concerns I have about with the budget isn't how they worked it and how we got here, and the unforeseen charges that happened during COVID, and how absolutely irrational and uncomprehensive, like the healthcare and everything else went up and down. But to run a business, you should have debt. So capital projects should be bonded, so we would be having debt. We are debt free.
We're not
We're
debt
not
free.
debt. We're not debt free.
But we're not. And we've spent so much cash, so much for capital, where we could have bonded and had more debt to offset it. So I think what Sergio's saying is by using that money to lower the tax bracket, I mean, the tax fee or dropping it by 2 points is because we're using it, instead of putting it into a capital improvement when somebody might move out next week, right? We're actually giving it back to the taxpayer. That's what I look at it.
Yeah,
Then if you want to do a capital improvement, you spend some money and then you bond the rest of it. I mean, I don't know. Isn't that why the HELOC was a big thing back in the 80s?
We also have a great credit rating, and our interest rates are very low. So
Yeah, but if you bond, you're going to have interest payments, which is going to be at an additional.
Which you just said makes no. What you just
No,
said
but
is like $2.
no, but the additional it's an additional expense on the next year's budget. For example, we haven't talked about some of the sewer districts. Okay, and I think I can't remember the number. I'm not going to look it up now. A very minimal sum for I&I in the Peekskill district. Okay. On December 4th, a bid is going to. We're going to have bid openings for I&I work, which is mandated because we're in a settlement with DEC. We don't know yet what that's going to cost, but it could be in the hundreds of thousands of dollars potentially to do that work. The fund balance of the sewer districts can't cover that. That's going to have to be bonded, okay? And that's going to have to be borrowed money, which is going to increase the cost for the sewer districts for next year. So it's like saying, I want to take my family to Disneyland, okay?
I just did.
And I'm going to take but I don't have the money on my regular income, my regular salary. So I'm going to take it from my savings account. Okay,
Susan,
I
excuse
take
me
it
one
from
second.
savings account.
For the department heads, have a wonderful evening. I don't want you all saying I can't come in tomorrow because Ed kept us here too late. Thank you all. Thank you all for your time.
Thank you all for your work.
And
Hope
you
everybody had a
you
good
guys can thank
Thanksgiving.
Bobby for reminding me it's getting late.
I just don't belabor the point, but I'm glad that in the preliminary budget they did not increase the amount of fund balance.
Look,
period.
it's the balance debate, and it's there. And look, I understand both concepts, and I just think now it's time to see if we want to adopt, move forward. Janelle, you had no other changes to bring?
Just the one change.
Yeah, so
to
those
move
are
the
those are just
master fee
minor?
and the-
Does anyone have a problem moving forward?
No.
All right, so you need a roll call on this?
I need you to have a motion.
I know that. Yes. Can I have a motion to adopt the budget?
Motion.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
No.
Opposed? No? Okay. Understand, Sergio. We've had a lot of conversations about it. I appreciate your
Candor.
your candor and input. Yep. Okay. Let's move on from there. And I will echo the words of Susan. You know, I know that Yvonne left, but thank you to the. Oh, is she back? Okay. But thank you for the library for bringing some people to express how they felt about you.
I'm an A as well.
Oh, okay. Thank
Sorry.
you. That's all right.
I didn't scream it out loud, but I'm an A as well.
All right. So I
Just
thank.
for your notes.
You want to explain why? Is there a reason?
For exactly that.
You wanted
I'm
more
not.
money from
I'm
the
not
fund balance?
comfortable with a 6.6 when I feel that we do have a healthy fund balance, and I do think that it's long coming, and what's in the book makes sense for what's in the book, and we don't have a golden ball or a prediction, and I believe that as much as you're afraid of the interest rates, and I'm not, and I believe that there should have been bonded money, and us having taxpayers pay into this for the unforeseen, I'm not for it.
Okay. Yeah, we've been having this debate privately, Sergio and I at times, and Luciana and I at other times. I knew they were concerned. Look, I think it's healthy to not have a full agreement, and I appreciate everyone's comments.
And I also want to thank you, Supervisor, and the board. And I'm going to go back to what Mark was saying, and I think I had this conversation with Janelle. I also just went to Disney World, and the way I went to Disney World was every year I took a piece of my bonus to go to Disney World. So I'm not afraid of a little increment, but to hit the town payers at a time where eggs are $12 or $8 and strawberries are $7, and we're just trying to come back to it. No, it's not
All right.
for me.
Thank you.
So can I just clarify this vote? Luciana is an A, Ed is an A.
Aye.
Aye. Sergio Esposito is a nay. Patrick is a aye, and Susan is an aye.
Correct.
I could have saved, 1% on the tax rate if you had gone with the 3 suggestions that I had, but what the hell? All right.
All right. Well, I do believe that we need to have succession planning. Everyone in this room has probably heard me say it, and Dan is no offense, Dan. You're not a spring chicken anymore. Still got some pep in your step coming up the stairs, but he might not want to spend the rest of his days chained to a desk in the basement of the town hall.
He needs a deputy.
All right, so resolutions. From the Advanced Life Support Commission, award request for proposal for advanced life support service to Empress EMS for the years 2025, 2026, and 2027.
Ed, if you can take that one separately, since Councilwoman Howard has recused herself from that particular
Will
resolution.
do. So why don't you announce
No.
why you're recusing?
I'm
and then-
recusing because my husband is not only an active EMT at the YVAC, he has graduated and is a medic and works for Empress.
All right. So,
Thank you for announcing that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I hope he doesn't have to visit anybody.
There you go. So can I have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. And thank you, Rick, for your service.
All right. From the Albert A. Capellini Community and Cultural Center, authorize use of the Nutrition Center at the Albert A. Capellini Community and Cultural Center for 5 hours on Sunday, December 29th, 2024, for their Hanukkah celebration, and waive the rental and overtime fee of $570. From the Office of the Town Clerk, authorize the Town Clerk to purchase 3 Ricoh copiers and 2 scanners with additional accessories. Authorize the supervisor to sign any documents to procure the equipment off state contract, and authorize the controller to process the budget transfer as enumerated below. And then authorize the town clerk to purchase the Swagit service and ease encoder offered through Granicus. Authorize the supervisor to sign an amended quote documents to procure the equipment and upgrades, and authorize the comptroller to process the budget transfer. And what this will do is, and I thank Diana for all her work on this, and Janelle and getting together with her on making this happen. We will be able to do live remotes in the library for a meeting, in town, in the Capellini Center, at the T-Bar like we've done, and we will also have closed captioning available that will automatically be generated onto the screen.
I apologize in advance because I speak really fast. I'm not sure what the words will look like.
They'll be all in caps. So, but it also improves the quality, right? There's going
Yes.
to be better quality and stuff. Like it's great for the taxpayer. Diana, why don't you tell us about it?
We haven't updated the Granicus equipment since probably the system was put in with Susan Siegel many years ago.
2010 or
So
11.
it's that's why the cost is so great, because we have such antiquated equipment.
Yes.
All right, let's get it done.
All right. So great work on the team and getting that accomplished, finding the money this year and moving forward. We will set a public hearing to consider the MS4 stormwater management permit and tree removal permit application submitted by Pani Industry, Inc. for the construction of a single-family house for property located at 2991 Hickory Street. From the engineering department, we will authorize the engineering department to purchase one 2025 Ford Explorer under New York State contract PC 69421 from Healy Brothers Ford LLC. We will, from the highway department, authorize the town clerk to advertise a bid for the monthly rental of 2 Horizon Signal temporary traffic lights for the highway department. Authorize the comptroller to release a street opening permit number 23006 in the amount of $2,000 and permit 23007 in the amount of $2,000 to Boniello Land and Realty Ltd. From the Human Resource Department, approve benefits for department heads and other managerial and professional employees holding office titles who are not covered by a union contract. Just want to make sure I know I emailed that out to everyone. Did you see?
Yeah, please don't read it. It's like 3 pages.
Approve the below-listed managerial employees to carry additional accrued 2024 vacation time for use in 2025, as enumerated. Approve the below-listed employees to carry over accrued 2024 vacation time for use in 2025, as enumerated. From the planning department, John, you've been waiting for this all this time, huh? Authorize Weston and Sampson, PELS LAPC, to perform a wetland delineation verification for the proposed Homeland Towers site NY 578 at 62 Granite Springs Road. Want to check work that's being done there. From the town attorney, authorize a supervisor to execute all documents necessary to procure Hudson River Valley Greenway grant for $5,375 for the beautification of the Veteran Memorials Circle, and that is their phase 2 of a project that's going to be starting. Very happy to see the work they're doing there, and even more important, our veterans are very, very grateful for the work. Authorize the town supervisor to sign agreement with DataWorks Plus for a maintenance contract and support service for the Yorktown Police Department's live scan equipment and software. From the Water Department, authorize a comptroller to process the following budget transfer for the Water Department as enumerated below. Can I have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, no further business before the board. Can I have a motion to
Motion.
adjourn?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everyone.
Good night, Yorktown.
Good night.
Don't forget to grab a cookie.